The Long Goodbye by Raymond Chandler. The first time I laid eyes on Terry Lennox, he was drunk in a Rolls-Royce outside the terrace of the Dancers. The parking lot attendant was holding the door open because Terry Lennox's left foot was dangling outside. He had a young-looking face, but his hair was bone white. There was a girl beside him. Over her shoulder she had a blue mink. The girl said, "Why don't we just take a cab to your place and get your convertible?" The white-haired lad said politely, "Awfully sorry, but I was compelled to sell it, for eating money." The attendant let the car door swing open. The drunk promptly slid and landed on the blacktop. I went over and got him under the arms and got him on his feet. "Thank you so very much," he said politely. The girl slid under the wheel. "He gets so goddamn English when he's loaded." She let the clutch in and the roll started to glide and was gone. And I was still holding the man up, and he was now asleep. "Get my car, will you?" I said to the attendant. He brought my Olds over and helped me get him into the front seat. The customer opened an eye and thanked us and went to sleep again. The right side of my new friend's face was frozen and whitish and seamed with thin, fine scars. "What you aim to do with him?" asked the attendant. "Take him home and sober him up." He grinned. "Okay, sucker. But them booze hounds just make a man a lot of trouble for no fun." He was partly right, of course. Terry Lennox made me plenty of trouble. But after all, that's my line of work. I was living in a house on Yucca Avenue in the Laurel Canyon district. It was a small hillside home on a dead-end street with a long flight of redwood stairs to the front door. I got the drunk up them somehow. I dragged him inside and he snored for an hour. Then he came awake and wanted to know where the hell he was. He said his name was Terry Lennox and that he lived in Westwood. His voice was clear and unslurred. "How come I'm here?" he asked. "You quiffed out at the Dancers in a Rolls. Your girlfriend ditched you." "Quite," he said. No doubt she was justified. "You English?" "I've lived there. If I might call a taxi, I'll take myself off." "You got one waiting." He made the steps on his own going down. His apartment was small and impersonal. He offered me a drink. I said no thanks. When I left, he thanked me some more. I drove home chewing my lip. I'm supposed to be tough, but there was something about the guy that got me. It was the week after Thanksgiving when I saw him again. It was about 3 blocks from my office building that I saw a cop car double-parked and the 2 buttons in it staring at something. The something was Terry Lennox. He was leaning against a storefront. His shirt was dirty and he hadn't shaved for days. It was obvious the buttons were about ready to drop the hook on him, so I went over and took hold of his arm. "Straighten up and walk," I said. "You're halfway into the drunk tank." He let me walk him to the edge of the curb. There was a taxi stand there, and I yanked open a cab door and got Terry Lennox in. We went the 3 odd blocks to my parking lot and shifted to my car. We went to a drive-in, and I fed Terry Lennox a couple of hamburgers and drove him home. The steps were tough, but he made the climb. An hour later, he was shaved and bathed, and he looked human again. We sat down over a couple of very mild drinks. He gave a tired smile. "I have a $200 suitcase checked to the Hollywood bus station. If I could bail it out, I could buy a cheap one and pawn the one that's checked for enough to get to Vegas. I can get a job there. Guy I knew in the Army runs a big club there." "I can manage the bus fare," I said, "but you better talk to him on the phone." "Thank you, but Randy Starr won't let me down, and the suitcase will pawn for $50. "I'd put up what you need," I said. "I want you out of my hair because I got a feeling about you, a feeling that next time I'll find you in worse trouble than I can get you out of. Maybe that girl walked out on you at the Dancers because she had a feeling too." He smiled faintly. "I was married to her once. Her name's Sylvia Lennox. I married her for her money." I stood up scowling. "You're wondering why I couldn't ask her for a few bucks? Do you ever hear of pride?" "You're killing me, Lennox." I said I had to go to the office and would pick up his suitcase on the way back. The suitcase was the damnedest thing you ever saw. It was bleached pigskin and the fittings were gold. I plunked it down in front of him. "I called Randy Starr," he said. "He was sore because I hadn't called him before. I'd like to leave the suitcase with you if you could lend me an old one." I got 5 double sawbucks out and dropped them in front of him. "I don't need this much money," he said. "You keep the money and I'll keep the suitcase." He changed his clothes and caught the bus at Cahuenga, and I drove home thinking about this and that. The phone rang at 9:30, and the voice that spoke was one I had heard before. "This is Sylvia Lennox, Mr. Marlowe." We met briefly in front of the dancers last month. I heard you'd been kind enough to see that Terry got home. I did that. I've been a little worried about him. Nobody seems to know where he is. He's on a bus going to Vegas, Mrs. Lennox, I said. He has a friend there who'll give him a job. She brightened up. The guy was starving, I said. You could have found him if it had been worth your time. He didn't want anything from you. That, she said coolly, is something you couldn't possibly know about. And she hung up. She was dead right, of course, but I didn't feel wrong. I just felt sore. 3 days before Christmas, I got a cashier's check on a Las Vegas bank for $100. A note came with it. He thanked me and said he hoped to see me soon. The kick was in the postscript. Sylvia and I are starting a second honeymoon. I caught the rest of it in one of those snob columns. Terry and Sylvia Lennox have rehitched at Las Vegas. She's the younger daughter of multimillionaire Harlan Potter. And what does Harlan Potter think of the remarriage? One can only guess. Mr. Potter is one person who never gives an interview. I had no mental picture of Terry Lennox loafing around a swimming pool and phoning the butler to ice the champagne. I just didn't want to see him again. But I knew I would. It was 5 o'clock on a wet March evening when he walked into my office. He looked changed. Let's go to some quiet bar and have a drink, he said, as if he had been in 10 minutes before. We went to Victor's and sat in a corner of the bar and drank gimlets. They don't know how to make them here, he said. A real gimlet is half gin and half Rose's lime juice and nothing else. How do you get on with Randy Starr? Down my street he's called a rough number. He looked thoughtful. I guess he is. But in Las Vegas he's a legitimate businessman. That's just a word, Marlowe. Randy and I and another fellow were in a jam once. It made a sort of bond between us. Then why didn't you ask him for help when you needed it? He drank up his drink. Because he couldn't refuse. I said, if the guy owed you something, he'd like a chance to pay something back. He shook his head. I know you're right. Of course, I did ask him for a job. As for asking favors, nah. But you'll take them from a stranger. The stranger can keep going and pretend not to hear. We had 3 gimlets, and it didn't do a thing to him. From then on, it got to be a sort of habit with him to drop in around 5 o'clock. We went more often to Victor's than anywhere else. He never drank too much. What I don't get, I said, is why a guy with your privileges would want to drink with a private eye. We don't live in the same world. I guess your home life is adequate. I don't have any home life. I don't get that. I guess Sylvia's happy enough, though not necessarily with me. Mostly I just kill time and it dies hard. He finished his drink. I gotta run, Marlowe. I'm boring you and God knows I'm boring myself. You're not boring me. Sooner or later I may figure out why you like being kept like a poodle. He touched his scars gently. I was raised in an orphanage in Salt Lake City. He would have told me the story of his life if I'd asked him. But I never even asked him how he got his face smashed. If I had and he told me, it might have saved a couple of lives. Just possibly. The last time we had a drink in a bar was in May, and it was earlier than usual, just after 4 o'clock. He looked around with a slow smile of pleasure. I like bars just after they open for the evening. The first quiet drink of the evening in a quiet bar, it's wonderful. I agreed with him. He emptied his glass. I feel sorry for Sylvia, he said slowly. She's such an absolute bitch, and she's scared stiff. What of? Maybe the old man. Harlan Potter's a cold-hearted son of a bitch, and Sylvia is a tramp. He knows it, and he hates it. He waits and watches, and if Sylvia ever gets into a big mess, he'll break her in two and bury the two halves 1,000 miles apart. You're her husband. He lifted the empty glass and brought it down hard on the edge of the table. It smashed with a sharp ping. Sure, that's what the record says. I'm the 3 white steps and the big front door and the brass knocker, and you rap 1 long and 1 short, and the maid lets you into the $100 whorehouse. I stood and dropped some money on the table. You talk too damn much, I said, and it's too damn much about you. I walked out, leaving him there, shocked and white-faced. 10 minutes later, I was sorry. He didn't come to the office anymore. I had got to him where it hurt. I didn't see him again for a month. When I did, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. The ringing of the doorbell yanked me out of bed and down the hall. He stood there looking as if he hadn't slept for a week. He had a gun in his hand. The gun wasn't pointed at me. He was just holding it. It was a medium-caliber automatic, foreign-made. "You're driving me to Tijuana to get a plane at 10:15, he said. "I have a passport and visa. For certain reasons, I can't take a train or a bus or a plane from L.A. Would $500 be a reasonable taxi fare?" "Come in," I said. He came in and fell into a chair. "I'm in a great deal of trouble, Seamus." "I got the general idea. Let's talk about it after I've had a couple of cups of coffee." I went out to the kitchen at the back. He came after me. He was shaking. I got a bottle of Grandad and poured him a shot. "Almost passed out," he muttered. I poured him another slug and sat down across from him. He was propped in the corner of the nook, rigid. Then, without warning, his head came down on the table and he was sobbing. I reached across and dug the gun out of his pocket. It was a Mauser 765. I sprang the magazine loose. It was full. Nothing in the breech. "I didn't shoot anybody," he said. "Not recently, anyhow." "I'll tell you about it," he said. "Be very careful what you tell me," I said. "If you want me to ride you down to Tijuana, there are two things I must not be told." He nodded slightly. "One," I said, "if you have committed a crime, I can't be told about it. Two, if you have knowledge that such a crime has been committed, I can't be told about that either." "I told you I was in a jam," he said. "I don't want to know what kind of jam. I have a license to protect." "Listen," he said. "It'll be noon before anybody knocks at the door. By about noon, her maid would go in. She wouldn't be in her room. The maid would see her bed hadn't been slept in. There's a big guest house pretty far back from the main house. The maid would eventually find her there. She would find Sylvia dead drunk," I said harshly. He thought about it. "Of course," he said. "That's how it would be." "That's almost the end of the story," I said. "Let me improvise. You say you have a passport and a visa. It takes a little time to get a visa to Mexico. So you've been planning to blow for some time. I tried to call you in the middle of the night. I sleep hard. Then I went to a Turkish bath place. I stayed a couple of hours and made a couple of phone calls. I left the car. I walked from there. Nobody saw me turn onto your street." "Do these phone calls concern me?" "One was to Harlan Potter. I told him I was sorry, but I was leaving. He was sorry. Asked if I needed any money. I said I had plenty. Then I called Sylvia's sister. Much the same story there. I asked, 'Did you ever find her with a man in that guest house?' He shook his head. I never tried. It would not have been difficult." "Lots of men, huh? But you went back and married her again." "I told you I was no good. She's been married 5 times, not including me. Any one of them would go back at the crook of her finger." "She's quite a dish," I said. I looked at my watch. "Just why does it have to be the 10:15 at Tijuana?" "There's always space on that flight." I stood up. "Now let's add it up. You came to me this morning in a highly emotional condition and wanted to be driven to Tijuana on an early plane. You told me you had stood things as long as you could. Last night you found your wife dead drunk and a man had been with her. You went to a Turkish bath to pass the time until morning, and you phoned your wife's 2 closest relatives and told them what you were doing. We are friends, and I did what you asked me without much thought. You took nothing but the clothes you stood up in and some money you had from your father-in-law. You wanted to go away as clean as possible. All right, I'll buy it. Now I shave and get dressed. I finished dressing and locked up the back part of the house. When I got to the living room, he had fallen asleep in a chair. When I touched his shoulder, he came awake slowly. I said, "What about a suitcase?" "You'd be conspicuous without any baggage." I walked back and pulled the pigskin job down off the high shelf. I climbed down with the suitcase and shoved some things into it, carried it up front, and we left. I drove fast, and we hardly spoke on the way down. On the mesa where the Tijuana airport is, I parked close to the office while Terry got his ticket. A pilot was chatting with 4 people. One was tall. There was a girl beside him and a middle-aged man and a tall gray-haired woman. There was a Packard parked next to me. I got out and took a gander at the license, and I saw the tall woman staring in my direction. Then Terry came across the gravel. "I'm all set," he said. "This is where I say goodbye." He smiled. "Remember, pal, if things get tough, you have a blank check. You don't owe me a thing. I left 5 C-notes in your coffee can." "I'd rather you hadn't." A squatty guy came out of a building and waved. "Climb aboard," I said. "I know you didn't kill her." "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but you're wrong about that." He walked to the plane. I watched him. Then I left. It was 2:00 when I got back, and they were waiting for me in a sedan with no police tags. "Your name Marlowe? We want to talk to you." He was gray-blonde and looked sticky. His partner was neat and had a precise nastiness about him. "Sergeant Green, Central Homicide. This is Detective Dayton." I went on up and unlocked the door. They sat in the living room. Green did the talking. "A man named Terry Lennox. Know him?" "We have a drink together once in a while." "You saw him last when?" "We used to go to Victor's fairly often, not so often to—" Quit stalling. "Who's dead?" I asked. Detective Dayton spoke. "We're conducting a routine investigation. That's all you need to know." I got up and took down a copy of the California Penal Code. "Would you kindly find me the section that says I have to answer questions?" He was going to hit me, and we both knew it. He said everyone has to cooperate with the police. "In law, no such obligation exists," I said. "Ah, shut up," Green said. "Lennox's wife has been murdered in a guest house at their place. Lennox has skipped out." "So why come to me?" I asked. "On account of your phone number was written on a pad in his room during the past 24 hours, Green said. "Why in the guest house?" I asked. He blushed. "Seems she went there pretty often. Had visitors. Too much is enough. Lennox is our boy. He went that way about 1 a.m. The butler happened to see. He came back alone about 20 minutes later. This morning, no Lennox. The butler goes down by the guest house. The dame is naked and she practically ain't got a face, beat to pieces with a bronze statuette." "Terry Lennox wouldn't do anything like that," I said. "It happens all the time," Green said, "so quit horsing around or we take you in." Dayton stood up. He walked over and stood in front of me. "On your feet, bright boy. I don't take guff from a nit like you." I started to get up when he hit me. I sat down hard. Dayton was smiling now. "Let's try again," he said. Green was looking at his thumb. He said almost absently, "For the record, Marlowe, last time you saw Terry Lennox, yes or no?" "How about the other guy?" I asked. "What other guy?" "In the guest house. You're not saying she had to go down there to play solitaire?" "You don't talk. We take you in, Marlowe." "As a material witness?" "My foot. Suspicion of accessory after the fact of murder. My guess is you took the guy somewhere. Come on, Marlowe. I'm blowing the whistle on you." "Blow it," I said. "Terry Lennox was my friend. You've got a case against him. Motive, opportunity, and the fact that he skipped. The motive is old stuff. The rest of it means nothing. At the inquest, I'll have to answer questions. I don't have to answer yours. If you want to get me in a real jam, let Dayton hit me again. I'll break his goddamn pencil for him." "I'll use the phone," Green said. He crossed to the phone and lifted it. The captain said to bring me in and rough. The homicide captain that year was the Captain Gregorius, the kind of copper that solves crimes with a bright light, a kick in the kidneys, and a knee to the groin. Right now, I was his meat. Green said all we got on him is he won't tell us nothing, Skipper. "Thinks he's tough," Gregorius said. "We could change that. Point is the DA smells a lot of headlines seeing who the girl's old man is. Put the cuffs back on, make 'em bite." Green cuffed my hands behind my back. I was sitting on a hard chair. My hands started to feel numb. Gregorius looked at me. "You can talk now. Make it snappy." I didn't answer. He grinned. His hand went around his coffee cup. The cup jerked, and I beat it by going sideways out of the chair. Green helped me back. "He moves fast," Gregorius said. He looked me over. "Now let's have your statement. You got information, and I want it." "I need legal advice," I said. "How about if we had somebody from the DA's office here?" He let out a raucous laugh. Then he hit me on the side of the neck with a fist like a piece of iron. It nearly took my head off. Then the phone rang. Dayton answered it. He listened, then held the phone out to Gregorius. "Commissioner Albright, sir." Gregorius scowled. He took the phone and listened. "Yeah, he's here, Commissioner." "Sure." "Hell, nobody laid a glove on him." He put the phone on its cradle. "Take the cuffs off," he said. "Book him in county jail. Suspicion of murder. The DA has glommed the case right out of our hands." I had cell number 3 in the felony tank to myself. On the third day, a deputy unlocked the door. "Your lawyer's here." He took me to the conference room. A tall, dark-haired man was there. He opened a hammered silver cigarette case and looked me over. "Sit down, Marlowe. My name is Sewell Endicott. I've been instructed to represent you without cost or expense to you." "Who sent you?" "I'm not at liberty to say. I guess that means they got him." "If you mean Lennox," he said, "they haven't." "If they haven't got Terry," I said, "why are they holding me?" He frowned. "District Attorney Springer may have been busy, but you're entitled to arraignment. I can get you out on bail on a habeas corpus proceeding." "I'm booked on suspicion of murder." That's just a catch-all. To make you an accessory, they have to prove intent. What you really are is a material witness. But a man can't be held as a material witness in this state except by court order. He looked at his watch. You want out on bail or don't you? Thanks, I don't think I do. A guy out on bail is already half guilty in the public mind. If you're in touch with Lennox, would you tell him to quit bothering about me? I'm in here for me. I'm in a business where people come to me with troubles. How long would they come if any bruiser with a police shield could hold me upside down and drain my guts? I see your point, he said slowly, but I'm not in touch with Lennox. I guess you're not in any mood to be helped. You can reach me if you change your mind. I'll stick it out for a day or two longer. If they catch Terry, they won't care how he got away. All they'll care about is the circus they can make of the trial. The murder of Harlan Potter's daughter is headline material all over the country. Endicott smiled a derisive smile. I don't think you know very much about Mr. Harlan Potter. All I know about Harlan Potter is that he's supposed to be worth $100 million and that he owns 9 or 10 newspapers, and nobody's interviewed me from the press. He walked to the door. $100 million shrewdly employed can buy a great deal of silence. He opened the door and went out. Then a deputy came and took me back to cell number 3 in the felony block. The deputy on the early night shift unlocked my door. A fat man waited in the booking office. I'm Spranklin from the DA's office, he told me. Mr. Grenz wants you upstairs. Upstairs, Spranklin opened the door of a small room that contained a desk and Grenz, a thick-set man with stupid eyes. Wait outside to take him back, Grenz told Spranklin. I pulled a chair over and sat down. I didn't tell you to sit down, Grenz barked. A smell of whiskey floated across the desk. Take another quick one, I said. It'll calm you down. His face went dark red. You don't seem much impressed by the jam you're in. I don't figure I'm in any jam. We'll see about that. I want a very full statement from you. He switched on a recorder set by a stand beside his desk. I get so tired of it, I said. Hard little men in hard little offices talking hard little words that don't mean a goddamn thing. You think sitting alone with my thoughts for 56 hours in a felony tank has made gruel out of my brains? I'm not making any statement. He said, I'm offering you a chance to clear yourself. I can arraign you tomorrow morning and have you set for a preliminary hearing. On what charge, I asked. Accessory after the fact. Better catch Lennox first, I said carefully. Grenz had something. He was enjoying himself. Lennox is a hard man to hide, Marlowe. A guy that has scars all over one side of his face, not to mention white hair. We got 4 witnesses. Witnesses to what? I was tasting something bitter in my mouth. A San Diego Superior Court judge and his wife happened to be seeing their son and daughter-in-law off on that plane. All 4 saw Lennox, and the judge's wife saw the car he came in and who came with him. You don't have a prayer. Sounds good, I said, but you have to catch him and prove he committed a murder. It could be we already have a confession, chum. So why do you need a statement from me? We'd like a tidy record. I stared at him. Maybe you'd like the whole libretto, he said suddenly. Lennox got off the plane at Mazatlan. He disappeared for 2 or 3 hours. Then a tall man with black hair and a dark skin and what might have been a lot of knife scars booked a Torreon. His Spanish was good, but not good enough. The pilot turned in a report on him. By the time the cops got going, the man had chartered a plane and had gone on to a little mountain town called Otataclan. He registers at a hotel there. He was wearing a gun, a Mauser 765. I said, the story stinks. What we want, he said dryly, is a quick trial, a plea of 2nd degree which we'll accept. The family is pretty influential. Meaning Harlan Potter. He nodded. Do I get that statement? Turn off the recorder, I said. You like it in jail? I'm practical. Would you hire a private eye that finked on his friends? He stared at me with hate. And doesn't it strike you that Lennox's evasion tactics were just a little transparent? He has brains enough not to disguise himself as a Mexican in Mexico. Gren switched off the recording machine. Right now, he said gratingly, I have to do something that turns my guts inside out. He pulled a face-down paper to him, turned it over and signed it. Then he marched around the desk, threw open the door and yelled for Spranklin. I've just signed your release order, he said. The Lennox case is closed, mister. He wrote out a full confession this afternoon in his hotel room and shot himself, in Otataclan, just like I said. I stood there looking at nothing. Spranklin grabbed my arm. I went out with him and closed the door. I closed it quietly, as if on a room where someone had just died. There was a man draped over the end of the booking desk, and as I turned away, he straightened up and spoke to me. "I'm Lonnie Morgan of the Journal. Need a ride home?" "Police beat?" I asked. "Just this week. The City Hall is my regular beat." We found his car in the parking lot, and we drove away. "This case interests me," he said. "It seems there isn't any case," I said. "Terry Lennox shot himself this afternoon." "So they say." "Very convenient," Lonnie Morgan said. "Somebody's building a wall around the Lennox case, Marlowe. It's not getting the kind of play it rates. There's only one man connected with the case in a position to do that, the girl's father." I leaned back. "What about the press? Harlan Potter owns a few papers, but what about the competition?" He gave me an amused glance. "Newspapers are owned and published by rich men. Rich men all belong to the same club. Sure, there's competition, as long as it doesn't damage the prestige and privilege of the owners. If it does, down comes the lid. The lid, my friend, is down on the Lennox case." I gave him a hard stare. "You calling the whole thing a fix?" He twisted his mouth sardonically. "Could be Lennox had some help committing suicide. I'll give you odds that nobody gets to count the bullet holes." "I think you're wrong," I said. "If they brought him back, he'd have copped a manslaughter plea." Lonnie Morgan shook his head. "Not a chance. There was too much brutality. Second-degree murder would be the best he could get." We reached Laurel Canyon, and I told him where to turn. He stopped at the foot of my steps. I got out. "Care for a drink, Morgan?" "I take a rain check." "You've got a friend to say goodbye to. He must have been that if you let them toss you into the can on his account." He drove off, and I climbed the steps, picked up the newspapers, and let myself into the empty house. I took the 5 C-notes out of the coffee can and read through the papers. The Lennox case started out big, but by that morning it was a Part 2 item. There was something that didn't figure. The way she had been beaten up, nobody could sell me that Terry had done that. Nobody could explain the Lennox case to me. The murderer had confessed, and he was dead. Very convenient. If Terry Lennox had killed his wife, there was no need to try him and bring out all the unpleasant details. If he hadn't killed her, a dead man is the best fall guy in the world. He never talks back. In the morning, I drove to my office. A dark, smooth-looking guy was in the corridor. "You Marlowe?" "So?" "A guy wants to see you," he said, and strolled off. I stepped inside and picked up the mail. I thought about Terry Lennox in a detached sort of way. I had invested time and money in him in 3 days in the ice house. Now he was dead, and I couldn't even give him back his $500. The door buzzer and the telephone rang at the same time. I answered the phone first. "This is Sewell Endicott. Glad to hear they turned you loose. I doubt if you'll hear any more about it, but if you do and need help, let me hear from you." "Why would I? The man's dead. They'd have a hell of a time proving he ever came near me." "Perhaps," he said carefully, "you haven't been told he left a full confession." "I was told, Mr. Endicott. Would I be out of line in suggesting that the confession would have to be proved, too?" "I'm afraid I have no time for a legal discussion," he said sharply. "I'm flying to Mexico with a rather melancholy duty to perform. Goodbye, Marlowe. My offer of help is still good." He hung up. Then I got up to open the communicating door into my waiting room. A man was sitting by the window. He had thick, dark, wavy hair. He was tanned very dark. He looked up with bird-bright eyes and smiled under a hairline mustache. "What can I do for you?" He looked me over. "Tarzan on a big red scooter. They rough you up much?" "What makes it your business?" "You're small time," he said. "You got cheap emotions. You pal around with a guy, eat a few drinks, and you're sold to him." He leaned across the desk and flicked me across the face, backhanded, contemptuously. "Know who I am, cheapie?" "Your name's Menendez. You operate on the Strip." "I'm a big bad man, Marlowe. I make lots of dough. Everywhere I go, I'm a darling. The best of everything, the best food, the best drinks, the best hotel suites." "Stop hamming and tell me what you want." His lip curled at me. "We were 3 guys in a foxhole," he said. "A little shelling, more mortar-fire. We are blue with the cold, Randy Starr and me and this Terry Lennox. A mortar shell plops right in the middle of us, and for some reason it don't go off. Terry grabs it, and he's out of the foxhole before Randy and me even start to get unstuck. He throws himself face down and throws the thing away from him, and it goes off in the air. A hunk gets the side of his face. Right then the Krauts mount an attack, and the next thing we know, we ain't there anymore." "Thanks for telling me," I said. For a long time, Randy and me figured Terry Lennox was dead, but he wasn't. The Krauts got him. They worked him over for a year and a half. It cost us money to find him, but we made plenty in the black market after the war. All Terry gets out of saving our lives is half of a new face, white hair, and a bad case of the nerves. Back east, he hits the bottle, kind of goes to pieces. The next thing we know, he's married to this rich dame. He unmarries her, hits bottom again, marries her again, and she gets dead. Randy and me can't do a thing for him, and when he gets in a real jam, he goes to a cheapie like you. So then he gets dead, and without giving us a chance to pay off. What do you want me to do about it? Just lay off, Menendez said. Terry's dead, and we don't want him bothered anymore. The Lennox case is closed, even if... He stopped dead. Even if Terry didn't kill her, I said. His surprise was thin. After a moment, he grinned. Tarzan on a big red scooter, he drawled. See you around, cheapie. I got up slowly and reached for his gold cigarette case on the desk corner. You forgot this, I said, going around the desk. When I was near enough to him, I hit him as hard as I could in the belly. He doubled up, mewling. Next time, bring a gun or don't call me cheapie, I said. He straightened up slowly and walked to the door and opened it. Outside, the bodyguard straightened. Take a good look at him, Chick, Menendez said. You and him might have business one of these days. So long, cheapie. The name's Chick Agostino, the bodyguard told me coolly. I guess you'll know me. I went back to my desk and spent a little time wondering why a fairly important local racketeer like Menendez would come in person to warn me to keep my nose clean. After that, nothing happened for 3 days. There was a brief inquest. The coroner entered his own verdict, which was that the death of Sylvia Potter Lennox had been caused with homicidal intent by her husband, Terence Lennox. Late afternoon of the third day, the telephone rang, and I was talking to a man who said his name was Howard Spencer, that he was a representative of a New York publishing house in California on a business trip, that he had a problem he would like to discuss with me, and would I meet him in the bar of the Ritz Beverly Hotel at 11 the next morning. Okay, Mr. Spencer, I'll be there in the morning. He thanked me and hung up. I needed a job because I needed the money, or thought I did until I got home that night and found the letter with a portrait of Madison in it. The letter was in my mailbox. It had Carrillo Arillo on it and a flock of Mexican stamps. I couldn't read the postmark. It began without date and without preamble. I'm sitting beside a second-floor window in a room in a hotel in a town called Otataclan. There's a mailbox just below the window, and when the mozo comes with coffee, he's going to mail this letter for me and hold it up so I can see it before he puts it in the slot. There's a swarthy character outside the door waiting for something. He won't let me out. I want you to have this money. Call it a token of esteem for a pretty decent guy. I still have the gun. I might have killed her, but I never could have done the other thing. The main thing now is to save a useless scandal. Her father and her sister have their lives to live. I have written a confession. I feel a little sick and more than a little scared. So forget it and me. But first drink a gimlet for me at Victor's, and after that Terry Lennox over and out. And so goodbye. A knock at the door. I guess it'll be the mozo with the coffee. Terry. That was all. It had been the mozo with the coffee, all right. Otherwise, I would never have had the letter, not with a portrait of Madison in it. A portrait of Madison is a $5,000 bill. I had never seen one before. I looked at it for a very long time. At 11 o'clock, I was sitting at the Ritz Beverly. The high-powered publisher was 20 minutes late, and then a dream walked in. She was slim and tall, her hair the pale gold of a fairy princess. Her eyes were cornflower blue, and the lashes were long. She was unclassifiable, as remote and clear as mountain water. I was still staring when a voice said, "I'm shockingly late. My name's Howard Spencer. You're Marlowe, of course." He was middle-aged, rather plump. He made a signal to the waiter. "I have a weakness for gin and orange. Will you join me?" I nodded. "One of our most important authors lives around here," he said casually, "Roger Wade." I looked across at the golden girl. She had finished her drink and was glancing at a wristwatch. "Tell me about yourself, Marlowe." "What sort of thing?" "I'm a licensed private investigator. I'm a lone wolf. I like liquor and women and chess. The cops don't like me too well." He gave me the once-over. "Here it is," he said. "We're in trouble over Roger Wade. He can't finish a book. The man seems to be going to pieces. Wild fits of drinking and temper. Not long ago he threw his wife downstairs. We have to have that book finished, but we need more. We want to save an able writer. Mrs. Wade is convinced he's perfectly sane, but that something is worrying him to death. A blackmailer, for instance. We want to know, and we're willing to pay to correct the trouble. And in the meantime, Mrs. Wade has to be protected. You don't want a detective, I said. You want a magician. I'd have to be there at exactly the right time, and drunks are cunning. He'd pick a time when I wasn't around to throw his wingding. It's not my kind of problem, Mr. Spencer. I see. He looked at his watch with a frown. I looked across at the golden girl. She was getting ready to leave. I glanced at Spencer. Look, I said, I'll go see the man if you want me to, but my guess is he'll throw me out. A voice that was not Spencer's said, No, Mr. Marlowe, on the contrary. I think he might like you. I looked up into the pair of violet eyes. Please don't get up, she said in a voice like the stuff they use to line summer clouds with. I'm Eileen Wade. Spencer said, He's not interested, Eileen. You're deciding too soon, she said. If you should change your mind. She gave me a card and walked away. It was an engraved card, Mrs. Roger Stearns Wade, 1247 Idle Valley Road. I knew a good deal about Idle Valley. It was exclusive, and I belonged there like a pearl onion on a banana split. Next morning the bell rang as I was wiping the talcum off an earlobe. When I opened the door, I looked into a pair of violet blue eyes. I know I shouldn't have come here to bother you, Mr. Marlowe, but I hate telephoning about personal matters. Sure, Mrs. Wade. She came in and sat on the davenport and accepted a cup of coffee. Last time anyone drank a cup of coffee with me was just before I went to jail, I said. I guess you knew I'd been in the cooler, Mrs. Wade. She nodded. You were suspected of having helped him escape. A neighbor of ours knew the Lennoxes. He must have been insane. I guess so, I said. But he's dead and it's done with, and I don't think you came here to talk about that. There was silence. Then she said, My husband has been missing for 3 days. I came here to ask you to find him and bring him home. It's happened before. Last time it was some sort of small private sanitarium. He wouldn't tell me the name of it, just said he had been taking a cure. I got a brief glimpse of the man who brought him home, a tall young man dressed in an over-elaborate cowboy outfit. She opened her bag. I brought you a check for $500, Mr. Marlowe. Will you accept it as a retainer? She put a folded check on the table. I didn't touch it. Any idea why he drinks? She shook her head. Unless it's me, she said. Men fall out of love with their wives. What sort of guy is he sober? She smiled. I think he's a very nice guy indeed. I gave it to her straight. I looked him up in Who's Who yesterday. He's 42 years old. Yours is his only marriage. He's written 12 of these sex and swordplay novels, and every one of them has been on the bestseller list. If he'd fallen out of love with his wife, he sounds like the type to get a divorce. What's the matter with Roger Wade is something that happened a long time before you were married. Spencer thought of blackmail. If Roger had been paying out a lot of money to someone, I wouldn't know. Okay, you want him found. So how do I go about finding him? She reached into her bag and came up with a piece of yellow paper. She handed it to me. I found this in the wastebasket. It read, I do not like you, Dr. V, but right now you're the man for me. She spoke. I have no idea who Dr. V is. Quite likely he's not even a doctor, I said. That brings up the question of ready cash. A quack wouldn't take a check. Room and board would come high, not to mention the needle. She looked puzzled. All the shady ones use dope on their clients. Easiest way to handle them. Okay, I'll try to find Dr. V. Take the check with you. I'd rather have it from Mr. Wade. No matter how smart you think you are, you have to have a place to start from. A name, an address, a point of reference. All I had was a piece of yellow paper that said, I do not like you, Dr. V. In a situation like this, the small man tries to pick the big man's brains. So I called up a man I knew in the Carn organization, a flossy agency in Beverly Hills. The man's name was George Peters, and he said he could give me 10 minutes if I made it fast. At his office, I said to Peters, I'd like to look at your file on the barred window boys. He nodded. The file you mention is top secret. I'll get it at once. He went out and came back with a cardboard file. Just what do we want from this? I'm looking for a well-heeled alcoholic. His wife's worried about him. She thinks he's in some sobering up joint. The only clue we have is a jingle mentioning a Dr. V. He began to turn the pages. "3 of them here," he said. "Dr. Amos Varley, an osteopath, place in Altadena. Then we have Dr. Lester Vukinich, ear, nose, and throat on Hollywood Boulevard. Our last offering is a man named Veringer, who runs a sort of art colony for writers and such. He's here because a lady poet suicided at his ranch. Overdose of morphine." "I like Veringer very much," I said. Peters closed the file. "You haven't seen this," he said. I started to thank him, but he shook it off. "By the way, I heard something about your friend Lennox. One of our boys ran across a fellow in New York 5 or 6 years ago that answers the description exactly, but the guy's name was Marston." "Why would he change his name? He had a war record that could be checked." "I don't know. You can talk to our man when he gets back in town if it means anything to you." "Thanks, George." Back from the highway at the bottom of Sepulveda Canyon were 2 yellow gateposts. A 5-barred gate hung open from one of them. Over the entrance was a sign, "No admittance." I turned in and followed a graveled road and stopped in front of a redwood building. There were rustic cabins scattered loosely over the side of the hill. I sat listening. The place seemed to be as dead as Pharaoh. Then I heard whistling, and a man pushed the screen door open and strolled down the steps. He wore a gaucho hat, a white silk shirt, a wide black sash, and skin-tight black pants. He stopped and looked at me, still whistling. He struck an attitude. "You from the bank?" "I'm looking for Dr. Veringer." "Who's he?" "He owns the place." "The bank owns the place. The joint's not operating, sweetie." "Where would I find Dr. Veringer?" A brief motion, and he had a fist with shining brass knuckles on it. He strolled towards me. "We don't have anything to fight about," I told him. He came at me with a smooth leap, and his left hand snaked out fast. A strong voice yelled, "Earl, stop that at once!" The gaucho boy stopped. I looked at a solid chunk of man hurrying toward us down one of the paths. "What's going on here?" he growled. "Name's Marlowe. I was asking for Dr. Veringer." "I am Dr. Veringer," he said. "Go in the house, Earl." Earl went slowly. "And what can I do for you, Mr. Marlowe?" "I thought you had a man named Wade staying with you." He hoisted a couple of eyebrows. "Wade? Why should he be staying with me?" "Taking the cure." He frowned. "What sort of cure did you have in mind?" "The guy's a wino. This place is some kind of sanitarium, isn't it?" "Certainly not. When it was in operation, it was an artist's colony." "I know that," I said. "It's in the file." "What file?" "We've got a file on what we call the barred window boys, Doctor." He drew himself up. "I must ask you to leave." "Okay, I'll leave. Thanks for the time, Doctor." "Earl bothers me a little." By the time I got into my car, Dr. Veringer was beside me. "We need not quarrel, Mr. Marlowe. Just what bothers you about Earl?" "The guy's a manic depressive, isn't he? Right now he's on the upswing." He looked grave. "Earl's parents were dear friends of mine. They are no longer with us. He's harmless. I control him with ease. It's been a sacrifice. In the end, it was either give up Earl or give up my place here, so I sold." "Goodbye, Doctor. My heart bleeds for you." He put out his hand. "I appreciate your sympathy, Mr. Marlowe, and I regret I'm unable to help you in your quest for Mr. Slade." "Wade," I said. "Pardon me. Wade, of course." I drove back along the graveled road, far enough around the curve of the highway to park out of sight of the entrance. 5 minutes passed. Then a car came down the private road. I heard a creaking noise, then the click of a heavy catch and the rattle of a chain. The car went back up the road. As I drove past the entrance to Dr. Veringer's private road, I saw the gate was fastened with a padlocked chain. I drove back to Hollywood feeling like a short length of chewed string. I called the Wade home. A Mexican sort of accent answered and said Mrs. Wade was not at home. I left my name. I drove home. As I opened the front door, the phone started to ring. "This is Eileen Wade, Mr. Marlowe. He still hasn't showed up." "Does the name Veringer mean anything to you, Mrs. Wade?" "No, I'm afraid not." "Would you recognize the young man in a cowboy outfit who brought Mr. Wade home if you saw him again?" "I might." "Dr. Veringer has a fancy boy named Earl working for him." "That's wonderful," she said warmly. "Don't you feel you're on the right track?" "I could be wetter than a drowned kitten. I just wanted to make sure Roger hadn't come home and you hadn't recalled anything definite." "I'm afraid I haven't been very much help," she said sadly. "Please call me at any time." I said I would, and we hung up. I took a gun and a flashlight with me this time. Dr. Veringer's boy, Earl, might have other toys than brass knuckles. It would be getting dark by the time I reached the entrance to Dr. Varenger's estate. The gates were still locked. I parked well off the highway. I climbed the gate and walked along the edge of the road. It took me 3/4 of an hour to get to a spot where I could look down on the main building. It was lighted up and I could hear music. Farther off in the trees, another cabin showed light. Then a door opened from the main cabin and Earl came out. Then I knew I was in the right place. Earl was a cowpoke tonight, and it had been a cowpoke who brought Roger Wade home the time before. He stood there spinning his rope around him, an actor without an audience. Then he went back into the house. I moved around and got close to the small lighted cabin. I reached a window and looked in. A man lay flat on his back on the bed, his body relaxed, his eyes wide open. A screen door creaked, and the solid shape of Dr. Varenger showed in the doorway. The man in the bed didn't even look at him. Dr. Varenger sat down. "How are you feeling, Mr. Wade?" The man went on staring at the ceiling. Come, Mr. Wade, let us not be moody." He leaned back in the chair. "I need $5,000. How soon could that happen?" "You got $650. How much does it cost in this bordello?" "You're in no position to get funny, Wade. Also, you have betrayed my confidence. A private detective has been here asking for you. You have to go home, Mr. Wade, but first I want my $5,000. "Try and get it, Doc." "You'll write me a check," Dr. Varenger said firmly. "Then Earl will take you home." "Nix. That lad makes my skin crawl," Wade said. Dr. Varenger stood up gently. "Earl is quite harmless. I have ways of controlling him." "Name one," a new voice said, and Earl came through the door. "Keep that psycho away from me," Wade bellowed. "You shouldn't have said that," Dr. Varenger said. "All right, Earl, I'll handle Mr. Wade myself. He's quite weak." "And he's going to be a lot weaker," Earl said. "Out of my way, fatso." Earl's right hand came up with a flash of metal. The armored fist crashed against Dr. Varenger's jaw. I started running. I reached the door and yanked it open. Earl spun around and started for me fast. I jerked the gun out. He kept coming. I fired through the open window. Earl stopped dead. Slowly his face came alive and he grinned. "Get rid of the knucks," I said. He slipped the mauler off and threw it in the corner. "Now the gun belt," I said. "They're not even guns, just stage money," he said, smiling. "Take the belt off," I said. He did it quite amiably. It wasn't until then that he saw Dr. Varenger crumpled on the floor. He made a sound of concern. Dr. Varenger sputtered. Then he started to get up. Earl helped him up. "Sorry, Doc." It's all right, Varenger said. "Get the car, Earl." Right away, he went out of the room, whistling. Wade was sitting up, looking shaky. "You the dick he was talking about? How'd you find me?" "Just asking around," I said. "If you want to go home, you might get clothes on." "I'll help him," Dr. Varenger said thickly. "All I do is help people, and all they do is kick me in the teeth." I went out and left them to work at it. Wade climbed into the back seat, and I got in beside him. Dr. Varenger drove. He pulled up close to where my car was. Wade got into it. Varenger walked back to his car and got into it and was gone. I headed toward the city. I turned over the pass, and after a climb, the lights of the valley spread out in front of us. "You haven't told me your name." "Philip Marlowe." "You the guy that was mixed up with Lennox?" "Yeah." "I knew her," Wade said. "A little. Him I never saw. Maybe you don't like to talk about it." "Why would that interest you?" "Hell, I'm a writer." "We'll take tonight off." "Okay, Marlowe. You don't like me." We reached the turnoff. "I don't either like or dislike you," I said. "Your wife asked me to find you and bring you home. It's just a job." He said his house was a mile further on. "How much is she paying you?" he asked. We didn't discuss it. "Whatever it is, it's not enough. You did a great job, chum." We reached the house. I pulled into the driveway and stopped close to the garage. "Can you make it?" "Of course." He got out. "Aren't you coming in?" Not tonight, thanks." "Okay," he said shortly. He turned and walked carefully to the front door. It opened. He went in. I started backing from the driveway. Somebody called out. I saw Eileen Wade standing in the open doorway. She started to run. When she came up, I said, "I ought to have called you, but I was afraid to leave him." "Of course, please come in and tell me about it." "He should be in bed. Good night, Mrs. Wade. You must be tired. Don't you want a drink?" "So you knew Sylvia Lennox," I said. "Who?" She sounded puzzled. "Sylvia Lennox." "Oh, no, I didn't know her personally. I knew who she was. Did Roger tell you he knew her?" "He said something about the case when I told him my name." I see. I must go in, Mr. Marlowe, and see if my husband needs anything. I'll leave you with this, I said. I took hold of her and kissed her hard on the lips. She didn't fight me, and she didn't respond. She pulled herself away quietly. You shouldn't have done that, she said. Sure, very wrong, I agreed. But I've been such a nice, faithful gun dog all day, and don't tell me I'm too nice a person. I'd rather be a heel. She looked back. Why? If I hadn't been a nice guy to Terry Lennox, he'd still be alive. Yes, she said quietly. How can you be so sure? She walked back. I watched her into the house. I waved at nothing and drove away. 3 days later, Eileen Wade called me up and asked me to come around to the house for a drink the next evening. They were having a few friends in for cocktails. You will come, won't you? I guess so, against my better judgment. Roger's working again. Good. She said goodbye and hung up. I sat there for a while. Then I got Terry Lennox's letter of farewell out of the safe and reread it. It reminded me I'd never gone to Victor's for that gimlet he asked me to drink for him. It was just about the right time of day for the bar to be quiet, the way he would have liked it. It was so quiet in Victor's you almost heard the temperature drop as he came in. On a bar stool, a woman was sitting alone with a pale greenish drink in front of her. She had a fine, drawn, intense look. I sat down 2 stools away. A gimlet, I said to the barkeep. The woman gave me a quick glance. So few people drink that around here, she said. Gimlets, I mean. A fellow taught me to like them, I said. He must be English. The bartender set the drink in front of me. The woman lifted her own glass towards me. We both drank. I knew hers was the same drink. He wasn't English, I said. I guess he'd been there during the war. We used to come here once in a while. Perhaps I knew your friend, she said. What was his name? Lennox, I said. She nodded. Yes, I knew him, perhaps too well. My name's Marlowe. My name is Linda Loring, she said. So you're the man. I said, I'm a fellow who knew Terry Lennox, liked him, and had an occasional drink with him. If what I hear is true, you helped him. I reached for my drink. Perhaps you could tell me something about Terry I didn't know. She stared. He killed himself and left a full confession. What more do you want? He had a gun, I said. In Mexico, that might be an excuse for some jittery cop to pour lead into him. As for the confession, I haven't seen it. It may be real enough, but it doesn't prove he killed his wife. All it proves to me is that he didn't see any way out. In a spot like that, a certain sort of man might decide to save some other people from a lot of painful publicity. That's fantastic, she said. Her sister and her father, they could take care of themselves. People with enough money can always protect themselves. Suddenly she smiled. I'm sorry, I'm beginning to think you're sincere. I did something foolish and got the works for it. His confession saved me a lot worse. She tasted her drink. Don't you think it was best the way it is? No trial, no headlines, no mudslinging. Could you by any chance be related to the Potter family, Mrs. Loring? Sylvia Lennox was my sister, she said. I thought you would know. With the hush old man Potter put on this affair, I would be lucky to know that Terry's wife had a sister. Surely you exaggerate. My father is hardly that powerful. He liked Terry. His death was quite a blow to him. If Terry had asked him for help, I think he would have given it. Oh, no, Mrs. Loring. His daughter had been murdered. She eyed me coldly. Father had written my sister off long ago. All of a sudden, I got mad. For hell's sake, Mrs. Loring, what are you trying to sell me? That Harlan Potter is such a sweet character, he wouldn't dream of using his influence to drop the blanket on a murder investigation? That he didn't let anyone lift a finger to find out who was really the killer? You're a fool, she said angrily. I've had enough of you. Terry talked to your old man the night Sylvia died. What did your old man say to him? Just run on down to Mexico and shoot yourself, old boy? You've had it soft and now's the time you pay back? She gathered her stuff up. I'd like to give you a word of warning. If you go around broadcasting the kind of thought you have just expressed, your career in this city is apt to be extremely short. Perfect, Mrs. Loring, perfect. I came here to drink a gimlet because a man asked me to. Now I'm practically in the boneyard. She stood up. I stood up beside her. She said, There's a man at the bar watching us. Would it be anyone you know? I looked around. His name is Chick Agostino. He's a gun-toter for a gambling boy named Menendez. I followed Mrs. Loring out through the door. A gray-haired chauffeur touched his cap and went off and came back with a Cadillac limousine. Mrs. Loring got into it. She ran the window down and looked out at me. "Good night, Mr. Marlowe." "Good night, Mrs. Loring. You don't live around here, do you?" "I live in Idle Valley. My husband is a doctor." "Would you happen to know any people named Wade?" "Yes, why?" "They're the only people in Idle Valley I know." "I see. Good night again, Mr. Marlowe." The Cadillac slid away into the traffic. Turning, I almost bumped into Chick Agostino. "I got the license number, bright boy. Mendy likes to know little things like that." A car door banged open and a man about 7 feet high jumped out, took one look at Agostino and grabbed him by the throat. "How many times I got to tell you cheap hoods not to hang around where I eat?" he roared. The big man gave me a raking glance and strolled into Victor's. "Who's your buddy?" I asked Chick. "Big Willie Magoon," he said thickly, "a Vice Squad bimbo." He looked at me emptily and walked away. In Hollywood, anything can happen. Anything at all. I had seen the Wades' house only once. It wasn't as big as it had looked at night. A Mexican butler in a white coat opened the door for me. He said, "Su nombre de usted, por favor." "Marlowe," I said. "We talked on the phone, remember, Candy?" He grinned, and I went in. Eileen Wade materialized beside me. "I'm so glad you could come," she said gravely. "Roger wants to see you in his study." I was halfway across the room when a voice said, "Oh, Mr. Marlowe." I turned and saw Mrs. Loring on a couch beside a prissy-looking man in rimless cheaters. "This is my husband, Dr. Loring. Mr. Philip Marlowe, Edward." He gave me a brief nod. "Edward is very tired," Linda Loring said. "Edward is always tired." I got away from there and made it to the bar. Candy was there. "Mr. Wade wants to see me," I said. "Okay, chum," he said. "Let's go." I followed him across the room. He opened a door, and I went through. I could see Wade lying flat out on a long blonde leather couch. A big wood desk had a typewriter on it, and there was a pile of yellow paper beside the typewriter. "Good of you to come, Marlowe," he said lazily. "Park yourself." He still looked pale and pinched. "How's the work going?" "Fine, except I get tired too quick." He rubbed his forehead. "I'm on the wagon, and I hate everybody with a drink in his hand. I've got to go out there and smile at those creeps." I lit a cigarette. "What do you want to see me about?" "What do you think I'm running away from, Marlowe?" "No idea. Everybody's running away from something." He grinned. "You're looking at a small-time operator, Marlowe. All writers are punks, and I'm one of the punkest. I've written 12 bestsellers, and not a damn one of them worth the powder to blow it to hell. I have a lovely wife who loves me and a publisher who loves me. I'm an egotistical son of a bitch and an all-round heel." He laughed roughly. "Let's have a drink." "Not in here, chum. I don't care to watch you take the first one." He stood up. "We don't have to drink in here. Let's go outside and glance at the sort of people you get to know when you make enough money to live where they live." "Knock it off," I said. "You want to get boiled, but don't take it out on a crowd that can get boiled without having to lie up with Dr. Veringer." He was suddenly calm. "You passed the test, chum. How about coming to live here for a while? I'm dangerous when I'm drunk. I don't want to be dangerous, and I don't want to be drunk." "I couldn't stop you." "Try it for 3 months. I'd finish the damn book." He stumbled against the couch. "There's something I want to know that I have to know." "About who? Your wife?" "I think it's about me," he said. "Let's go." He walked to the door and we went out. On the way to the bar, we came face to face with Dr. Loring and his wife. "Mr. Wade," Loring said, "I have something to say to you. Stay away from my wife." Wade looked at him curiously. "Doctor, you're tired, and I think you're a little off the beam." Dr. Loring took a pair of gloves out of his pocket, took hold of one by the finger end, and swung it hard against Wade's face. Linda Loring was flushed with anger. "Stop acting like a damn fool, will you, darling?" Loring stared at Wade. "I have warned you," he said icily. "I shall not warn you again. We're leaving. Come, Linda." "You are," she said. She turned her back. There was nothing for him to do but leave, and he did it. I went over to the bar and asked for some scotch. Wade disappeared. I didn't see Eileen either. The house was leaking guests out into the evening air. I went to the French windows and out onto a flagged terrace. I stretched out on a padded aluminum chaise and lit a pipe and wondered what the hell I was doing there. Light steps sounded behind me, and Eileen Wade came across the terrace and sat down beside me. I hate people who make scenes like that. He has played that same scene with half the men in the valley. Linda Loring is no tramp. She looked towards the lake. "So you won't be persuaded to do what Roger asked?" "There's no point in it, Mrs. Wade. If he could finish his book, I think things would be much better." He needs a psychiatrist, Mrs. Wade. He thinks he has a secret buried in his mind and he can't get at it. He thinks that's what makes him drink. He probably thinks that whatever happened while he was drunk. That's a job for a psychiatrist. I looked at her. You said the other morning he might have fallen out of love with his wife. That's something that could go the other way. She looked towards the house. Wade was standing inside looking out at us. He moved behind the bar and reached for a bottle. There's no use interfering, she said quickly. Since we're groping around, how about that other way around? I love my husband, she said. Not as a young girl loves, perhaps. A woman is only a young girl once. The man I loved then is dead. He died in the war. His name had the same initials as yours. His body was never found. We were very much in love. The wild, mysterious kind of love that never comes but once. She sat there half in a trance. For her, I wasn't there anymore. I got up and went in the house. Wade stood there with the drink. How are you making out with my wife, Marlowe? No passes, if you mean it that way. That's exactly what I mean. If I may quote the scintillating words of the good Dr. Loring, stay away from my wife, Marlowe. Sure, you go for her. You'd like to share her dreams. But there's nothing there, chum, nothing. I'm the guy that knows. He walked to the stairs. He made about a dozen steps and stopped. Perhaps she didn't get around yet to that haunting magic of her first love, the guy that went missing in Norway. You figure she could have maybe just invented him? He went on up the stairs. Nothing happened for a week. Then at 10 minutes to 11 on a Thursday night, Wade called me up. His voice was thick. I'm in bad shape, Marlowe. Could you make it out here in a hurry? There was a crashing sound, then dead silence. I yelled something into the phone. Finally, the light click of the receiver being replaced and the buzz of an open line. In 5 minutes, I was on the way. When I swung the Olds into the driveway, lights were on all over the house, and Eileen Wade was standing in the open doorway. She looked at me calmly. Where is he? He fell down, she said. He must have tipped the chair too far back. He cut his head. There's a little blood, not much. Where's he now? She pointed out there somewhere by the edge of the road. Christ's sake, didn't you look? I decided she was in shock. No, she said calmly, I've had all of it I can take. She turned and walked back into the house, leaving the door open. Inside the door, she just crumpled to the floor and lay there. I scooped her up and spread her out on one of the two big Davenports. I felt her pulse. Didn't seem weak or unsteady. I left her there and went back out. He was there, all right. He was lying in the shadow of the hibiscus. He had a fast pulse and his breathing was unnatural. Something in the back of his head was sticky. I got him hoisted into a fireman's lift position and plowed across the lawn in the direction of the front door. I staggered to the couch and rolled him off. I looked at his head. It was smeared with blood. Then Eileen Wade was standing beside me with the same remote expression. I telephoned Dr. Loring. He's my doctor. Where's Candy? This is his day off. Can you get him up to the bed? Not without help. We spread a rug over him, and in 15 minutes Dr. Loring came, complete with the expression of a man who has been asked to clean up after the dog got sick. He examined Wade's head. A superficial cut, no concussion. Bathe his head gently, he'll sleep it off. He left. Eileen glanced at her watch. Candy ought to be home by now. She went out through an archway and in a minute came back and had Candy with her. Help Mr. Marlowe carry my husband upstairs, Candy. I think I'll say good night. I'm tired out. She went up the stairs. We carried him, and even for two he was as heavy as a coffin. At the top of the stairs we went past a closed door. Candy pointed to it with his chin. La Senora, he whispered. You knock very light, maybe she'll let you in. I didn't say anything because I needed him. We turned in at another door and dumped Wade on the bed. Then I took hold of Candy's arm high up where dug-in fingers can hurt. What's your name, Cholo? Don't call me Cholo, he snapped. Juan Garcia, I'm Chileno. Okay, Don Juan, keep your mouth clean when you talk about the people you work for. He jerked loose and stepped back. His hand slipped inside his shirt and came out with a long, thin knife. He balanced it by the point on the heel of his hand. Then he dropped the hand and caught the handle of the knife while it hung in the air. It was done very fast and without apparent effort. And keep your paws to yourself, he said with a sneer. He turned to Wade. There was a smear of blood on the pillow. Who cut the boss? Not me, chum. He fell. It's only a shallow cut. You see him fall? Before I got here. You like this guy, don't you? He didn't answer. We got Wade undressed and into his pajamas. Candy looked down at him sadly and went out of the room. I turned Wade over and washed the blood off of his head gently. I could see a shallow cut about 2 inches long. I turned him on his back and washed his face. He opened his eyes. Who hit me? You took a fall. You called me. I called you? He grinned slowly. Where's Eileen? Gone to bed. Quit talking. Go to sleep. Sleep? What would that be? Maybe a pill would help. In the drawer. Night table. I opened it and found a plastic bottle with red capsules in it. Seconal. Prescription by Dr. Loring. Mrs. Roger Wade's prescription. He said 1 capsule would be enough. He took it and drank some water and lay back. Time passed. Then he said slowly, Do me a favor, Marlowe. I wrote some crazy stuff I don't want Eileen to see. It's on top of the typewriter under the cover. Tear it up for me. Sure. A longish pause. Ever kill a man, Marlowe? Yes. Nasty feeling, isn't it? I didn't answer. He began to snore. I dimmed the light in the room and went out. I stopped outside Eileen's door and listened. I didn't hear any sound. Downstairs I crossed to the study. The typewriter was on a heavy stand, and beside it on the desk there was a mess of yellow paper. I took the cover off the typewriter. The stuff was there, several sheets of yellow papers that I was supposed to destroy. I took them to the couch and sat down to read. What I read was really wild, like this. The moon's 4 days off the full, and it's looking at me like a big blind milky eye. I'm dirty. My hands are shaking. I smell foul. The glass on the table is empty. It would take both hands to pour the stuff now. It's all right for the first 3 days, and then it is negative. The price keeps getting higher, and what you get for it is less, and then there is always the point where you get nothing but nausea. Well, I did it. I got up. What a man. I took it, both hands, hardly spilled a drop. The glass is empty. It's on the table again. Now to get upstairs. Maybe a short one for the journey. Double space. Been up and came down. Didn't like it upstairs. She was sleeping on her side without sound. One of her eyes opened. Or did it? No. Would have sat up and said, Are you sick, darling? I came downstairs again. My guts lurched with the steps. I made the main floor and I made the couch and I waited for my heart to slow down. The bottle is handy. I gave Candy too much money. Mistake. Should have started him with a bag of peanuts and worked up to a banana. Maybe ought to kill the shiny-eyed bastard. A good man died for me once. Why not a cockroach in a white jacket? Forget Candy. The other I shall never forget. Better telephone. Getting very bad. Very, very. That was all. I folded the sheets up small and pushed them down into my inside breast pocket. Then I heard a shot. On the balcony, 2 doors were open now, Eileen's and his. There was a sound of struggling from his, and I came through the door to find her bending over the bed, wrestling with him. The black gleam of a gun shot up into the air. 2 hands, one large male, one small female, were both holding it. She now had both hands on the gun, and with a jerk she got it away from him. She stood leaning against me, holding the gun. She was racked with sobs. I reached around her and put my hand on the gun. She let go. The barrel was warm. I dropped the gun in my pocket. Wade opened his eyes, and a weary smile played on his lips. Nobody hurt, he muttered. Just a shot into the ceiling. I felt her go stiff. Poor miserable Roger, she whispered. Where was the gun? I growled. Night table, in the drawer. There hadn't been any gun in the drawer, and he knew I knew it. The pills had been in there, but no gun. Or under the pillow, he added. I shot once. He pointed up there. There seemed to be a hole in the ceiling plaster, all right. Nuts. You were swimming in self-pity. You got up and got the gun and got back into bed ready to wipe out the whole messy business. But I don't think you had the nerve. You fired a shot not meant to hit anything, and your wife came running. That's what you wanted. Pity and sympathy, pal. Even the struggle was mostly fake. She couldn't take a gun away from you if you didn't want her to. I'm sick, he said. Does it matter? Matters like this. They put you in the psycho ward. That's enough, Eileen said sharply. He is sick. He wants to be sick. I'm just reminding him of what it would cost him. You go back to your room. How dare you, unless you want me to call the police. These things are supposed to be reported. She looked exhausted now and frail. "It's all right," I said. "He won't do it again." She gave him a long look and went out of the room. I sat down on the side of the bed. Did I hit right about that shot? More or less. Nobody can stop you from killing yourself if you really want to. Did you do what I asked you? That stuff in the typewriter? Uh-huh. What do you mean a good man died for you? He frowned. Just rubbish. What's Candy got on you? Shove it, he said. You can't run forever, Wade. What is it, a woman? You believe that fool Loring? He said. What about the sister, the one that's dead? It was a wild pitch, but it split the plate. Is that why you're here? He asked in a whispering voice. You invited me. I'm not the first husband who's been an adulterer. Leave me alone. One of these days we'll get it together, I said. I've been living in hell. That's obvious. The point is why? He lay back and deflated. When his eyes got heavy, I went out of the room. Eileen's door was open. Her room was dark, but there was enough light from the moon to frame her standing just inside the door. She called out something that sounded like a name, but it wasn't mine. I said, he's gone back to sleep. I always knew you would come back, she said softly, even after 10 years. I peered at her. One of us was goofy. Shut the door, she said in the same caressing voice. All these years I've kept myself for you. I shut the door. She pressed herself hard against me. Her mouth came up to be kissed. Then her hands dropped and the robe she was wearing came open, and underneath it she was as naked as September morn. Put me on the bed, she breathed. I did that. She kept her arms around my neck. Then she thrashed and moaned. This was murder. I was losing control. Candy saved me. It was a thin squeak, and I swung to see the doorknob moving. I jerked loose and jumped for the door. I got it open and barged out, and he was tearing along the hall and down the stairs. I went back to the door and shut it. From the outside, the spell was broken. I went downstairs and crossed into the study and grabbed the bottle of scotch and tilted it. The whiskey hit me hard and fast, and I kept guzzling it until the room started to get hazy. Then I was flat out on the leather couch trying to balance the bottle on my chest. That was the last incident of which I took any precise notice. A shaft of sunlight ticked one of my ankles. I opened my eyes, and an axe split my head. The clock said a minute short of 6:30. I plowed across to the half-bath and sloshed cold water in my face. I reached for my jacket and took the gun out and swung the cylinder away from the frame. Then I thought, what's the use? There are always more. So I put them back and carried the gun into the study and put it in one of the desk drawers. When I looked up, Candy was standing in the doorway, his eyes bitter. The boss is okay. Asleep. You want breakfast? No, thanks. Okay, scram, he said. We don't want you here. I take care of the boss. You making it pay? Oh, yeah. Good money. How much on the side for not spilling what you know? He grinned. You give me a couple of $100, Seamus, so I don't tell the boss you come out of her room last night. Pachuco stuff, I said contemptuously. There was a gleam in his eye. Just don't come around here any more, tough boy. I come around here whenever I feel like it. Watch your lip. He walked out. I decided to be on my way. I had had a skinful of the Wade family. As I crossed the living room, Eileen was coming down the stairs. She looked at me with complete surprise. I put his gun in the desk, I said. Gun? Then it seemed to dawn on her. But I thought you'd gone home. I walked over closer to her. She had a thin gold chain around her neck and some kind of fancy pendant in gold and blue on white enamel, with some kind of military insignia. I got drunk, I said. I was a little lonely. You didn't have to be, she said, and there wasn't a trace of guile in her eyes. I'm leaving now, and I'm not sure I'll be back. You heard what I said about the gun? You put it in his desk, but he didn't really mean to shoot himself, did he? Next time he might. I don't know how to thank you. You made a good try. She got pink. Then she laughed. I had a curious dream. Someone I used to know was here in the house. Someone who has been dead for 10 years. She touched the pendant. That's why I'm wearing this today. You gave it to me. She lowered her eyes. You said you were not coming back. I said I wasn't sure. There's something very wrong in this house, and only part of it came out of a bottle. So long, Mrs. Wade. And if you really care about Roger, you better find the right kind of doctor, and quick." She laughed. "Oh, that was mild last night. He'll be working this afternoon." I gave her the last shot right in the teeth. "You don't really want to save him, do you?" That, she said, was a beastly thing to say to me. She stepped past me, and then the big room was empty, and I let myself out. It was a perfect summer morning. Idle Valley was a perfect place to live. Nice people, with nice homes, nice cars. But all a guy named Marlowe wanted from it was out, and fast. I went home and showered and shaved and began to feel clean again. It was about noon when the telephone rang and the voice said, "This is Linda Loring. I'd like to see you. I could be at your office in about an hour." "I'll be there." "Thank you very much." She hung up. I was slow getting there, and she was there already. I held the door open for her, and she gave my office the usual once-over. "Don't let the office fool you," I said. "Want to see a portrait of Madison? I've got it in the safe." I spun the knob and opened it and dropped an envelope in front of her. She picked up the bill. "You got this from Terry, didn't you? He had one he carried on him. What were you supposed to do for it, Mr. Marlowe? Did he give you a list of his wife's lovers so that you might find a murderer among them? And would the name of Roger Wade appear on that list? Is that why you're making yourself so useful to the Wades? Let me set you right on a couple of points, Mrs. Loring. Terry gave me no list and mentioned no names. My getting involved with the Wades was the work of a New York publisher and involves finding out if there's any special trouble that makes him get drunk." I put my money away in the safe. "Any drunk will eventually turn up with a loose woman. Wade is a drunk, but you're not a loose woman, so we rule you out." She sat looking. "May I ask what you propose to do next?" "Let's get around to why you wanted to see me." "I have a car downstairs. Could I prevail upon you to drive home with me and drink a cup of tea? I have a guest who'd like to make your acquaintance." "The old man?" "I don't call him that," she said evenly. It was the damnedest-looking house I ever saw. A square gray box 3 stories high. Amos, the chauffeur, stopped the caddy in front of the pillared entrance and came around to hold the door open for Mrs. Loring. "Shall we go in?" she said. "My father doesn't like to be kept waiting." We went up the stone steps. The hallway was bigger than the floor space in the house I was living in. We went into a dim room that couldn't have been less than 70 feet long. "This is Mr. Philip Marlowe, Father," Mrs. Loring said. "Mr. Harlan Potter." He looked at me like an entomologist looks at a bug. There was silence until the tea came. "2 cups, Harlan Potter said. "You can have your tea in another room, Linda." She went out of the room. I stared at him. I don't know how it feels to be worth $100 million or so, but he didn't look as if he was having any fun. "It will save time, Mr. Marlowe, if I put my position before you. I believe you're interfering in my affairs. I propose to stop it. It has been reported to me that you helped Terry get out of the country, that you have doubts about his guilt, and you have since made a contract with a man who is known to my dead daughter, Roger Wade. I further understand this man is a dangerous alcoholic." "First," I said, "I do not believe Terry killed his wife because of the way it was done. Second, I didn't make a contract with Wade. I was asked to do what I could to keep him sober while he finished a writing job. Third, I haven't seen any signs of his being a dangerous alcoholic. Fourth, my first contact was at the request of his New York publisher, and I didn't have any idea then that Wade knew your daughter. Fifth, I refused this offer of employment, and then Mrs. Wade asked me to find her husband, who was away taking a cure. Sixth, you sent a lawyer named Sewell Endicott to get me out of jail. Seventh, when I got out, a hoodlum named Mendy Menendez warned me to keep my nose clean and gave me a song and dance about how Terry had saved his life and the life of a gambler at Las Vegas named Randy Starr." "Surely," Harlan Potter said, "you are not under the impression that I number Mr. Menendez and Mr. Starr among my acquaintances." "I wouldn't know, Mr. Potter. The next person to warn me off was your daughter, Mrs. Loring. She gave me the idea I'd have a short career if I got you mad. Are you mad, Mr. Potter?" "When I am," he said coldly, "you will not have to ask." "I think all you wanted, Mr. Potter, was quiet. Just what have I done to disturb you?" He grinned. "You are exactly right in thinking all I want is quiet. It's quite possible your connection with the Wades is coincidental. I am a family man, Mr. Marlowe. One of my daughters married a Bostonian prig, and the other made a number of marriages, the last with a pauper who suddenly lost his self-control and murdered her. He shot her with a Mauser automatic. The bullet went through her head and lodged in the wall. The fact was not published. Terry killed his wife. He had to run away. But he called you first. He nodded. I told him to disappear and I would see what I could do. When I learned the details of the murder, there was nothing to be done. I could not permit the sort of trial that kind of killing would result in. I was glad when I learned he had shot himself in Mexico and left a confession. Can you understand now that I cannot tolerate any further investigation? Sure, if you're convinced he killed her. Of course he killed her. Okay, Mr. Potter, what goes from here? He wasn't listening. The power of money becomes very difficult to control. The average man is tired and scared and can't afford ideals. You can't expect quality from people whose lives are subject to a lack of quality. We make the finest packages in the world, Mr. Marlowe. The stuff inside is junk. I was sitting there with my mouth open. The guy hated everything. I got your point, Mr. Potter. You don't like the way the world is going, so you close off a private corner. You wrote your daughter off long ago. Even if the real murderer is walking around free, you don't care because there would be a trial and his defense would blow your privacy as high as the Empire State Building. He smiled suddenly. What do you want from me, Mr. Marlowe? If you mean how much money, nothing. I told the truth about how I met Roger Wade, but if I happened to be looking for a good suspect, he might do. A telephone call, Mr. Marlowe, would deprive you of your license. I've given you too much of my time. I'll ring for the butler to show you out. He held out his hand. Thank you for coming. Don't be a hero. I shook hands with him. He had a grip like a pipe wrench. I might be able to throw some business your way, he said. Goodbye, Mr. Marlowe. He watched me out. A week went by. Then Roger Wade called me up. We ought to have a talk. How about lunch today? Could you make it here somewhere around 1? I guess so. How's Mrs. Wade? She's fine. She's in town shopping today. We hung up. I had another call in a little while, a strange voice. This is Roy Ashterfeld. George Peters told me to call Marlowe. Oh, yeah, thanks. You're the fellow that knew Terry Lennox in New York. Called himself Marston, then. That's right. He was on the sauce. But it's the same guy, all right. Out here I saw him in Chasen's one night with his wife. What was his first name? Paul Marston. And he was wearing a British Army service badge. Next time I saw him, he was here, married to Harlan Potter's daughter. They're both dead now, but thanks for telling me. I thanked him some more, and we hung up. I thought about it a while and called Detective Sergeant Green at Homicide. Look, I said, I heard something about Terry Lennox that puzzles me. A fellow I know used to know him in New York under another name. You check his war record? That matter is closed, Green said harshly. I spent part of an afternoon with Harlan Potter last week. He likes me. He told me the girl was shot with a Mauser PPK, her own gun, chum. But don't get me wrong, I'm not looking into any dark corners. Where'd Lennox get that wound? Probably in a knife fight south of the border. Hell, Green, you had his prints. All I asked was about his service record. Lennox didn't have any war record. Didn't have any record of any kind under any name. I started to say goodbye, but he chopped me off. What did Mr. Money want with you? We had a cup of tea together. He also hinted that any cop that looked cross-eyed at me would be facing a grimy future. Go to hell, Green said, and hung up. A difficult thing being a cop. You never know whose stomach it's safe to jump up and down on. When I arrived at the Wade's house, Wade answered the door himself. He looked good. He led the way into his study. On his desk was a thick pile of yellow typescript. Thanks for coming, Marlowe. Book? I asked, pointing to the stack of paper. Yeah, it stinks. He leaned his chin in his cupped hands. Eileen says I tried to shoot myself. You don't remember? Not a damn thing. Candy came in and Wade said, lunch in half an hour. This is my day off, Candy said deadpan. The cook's off today, Candy. I've got a friend to lunch. You think he's your friend? Candy sneered. Better ask your wife. Wade smiled at him. Watch your lip, little man. After a moment, Candy grinned. Okay, boss, I get the lunch. He went out.
I'm paying the guy too much money. He's spoiled.
Wages, or something on the side.
Such as what?
He asked sharply. I handed him some folded yellow sheets. You better read it. Evidently you don't remember. He unfolded the yellow pages and leaned back to read them. When he came to an end, he refolded the sheets.
Pretty wild, isn't it?
I liked it, especially the part about a good man dying for you. He tore the paper into long strips and dumped the strips into his wastebasket.
I suppose a drunk will write anything. Candy's not blackmailing me. He knows I went there sometimes, but I don't think he would tell.
Maybe you better get drunk again. You might remember. He opened a drawer of his desk and came up with a checkbook.
I owe you $1,000, he said.
He wrote in the book. He tore the check out and dropped it in front of me.
Is that all right?
I didn't touch it.
I suppose you think I killed her and let Lennox take the rap,
he said slowly.
She was a tramp, all right, but you don't beat a woman's head in just because she's a tramp.
She wasn't killed with that bronze thing. She was shot with her own gun.
I didn't know she'd been shot.
Didn't know or didn't remember?
What are you trying to do to me, Marlowe?
His voice was dreamy.
What do you want me to do?
You said a good man died for you.
All I meant was that if there had been an investigation, I might have been identified as one of the suspects. It would have finished me in several ways.
I didn't come here to accuse you of murder, Wade. What's eating you is that you're not sure yourself, and the guy who got the credit for the job seemed to me a lot less likely than you. He walked to the open French windows and stood looking out. Candy came in wheeling a tea wagon.
Bring me a bottle of whiskey.
Sorry, boss, no whiskey. He looked down at the check and hissed between his teeth. I go now. This my day off. He went.
So I get it myself,
Wade said, and he left. He came back with a bottle and a glass. He poured a stiff jolt and sucked it down. There was the sound of a car going away, probably Candy leaving by the service driveway.
We have all afternoon to kill, Wade said.
He had a glow on already.
You don't like me, do you, Marlowe?
That question has already been asked and answered.
Know something? You're a pretty ruthless son of a bitch, Marlowe.
He drank some more whiskey, then he reached for the check and read it.
Seems to be made out to somebody named Marlowe. Seems I signed it. Foolish of me.
Stop acting, I said. Where's your wife?
My wife will be home in due course. No doubt by that time I shall be passed out and you can entertain her at your leisure.
Where's the gun? I asked. He looked blank. I told him I'd put it in his desk.
Not there now, I'm sure, he said.
I went to the desk and frisked it. No gun. Probably Eileen had hidden it. Look, Wade, I think your wife ought to come home. Somebody has to look out for you, and I'll be goddamned if it's going to be me. He was still holding the check. He tore it across, then again and again, and let the pieces fall to the floor.
Your service has come very high. Even $1,000 and my wife failed to satisfy you.
I'm leaving, I said.
Why? You wanted me to remember. Here in the bottle is my memory. Stick around, pal. I'll tell you about all the women I've murdered.
Okay, Wade, I'll stick around, but not in here. If you need me, just smash a chair against the wall. I went out and left the door open. I stretched out on one of the chaises. Across the lake, there was a blue haze against the hills. Idle Valley was having a perfect summer. Somebody had planned it that way. Top-drawer crowd, the lovely people, like the Lorings and the Wades. Pure gold. I lay there for a half an hour trying to make up my mind what to do. Part of me wanted to let him get good and drunk and see if anything came out. The other part of me wanted to get out and stay out, but this was the part I never listened to. I got up and went back to the study. He was just sitting there.
Don't bother me, he said. I have a little man on my shoulder telling me stories.
He reached down and patted the whiskey bottle.
You're lonely, pal. You need company.
He got up and walked fairly steadily out of the room. I waited. A speedboat came racketing down the lake. I could see it was high out of the water and towing a surfboard with a husky lad on it. Wade came back with another bottle of whiskey. Christ, you're not going to drink all that, are you? He squinted at me.
Take off, Buster.
I'll stick around until Mrs. Wade comes home. Ever hear of anybody named Paul Marston? I could see him fighting for control. He won the fight for the moment.
Never did, he said carefully. Who's he?
The next time I looked in on him, he was asleep. One of the whiskey bottles was empty. I went back to the patio. It was a long time before the speedboat came tearing down the lake again. It was almost 4 o'clock when I heard its roar swell into an ear-splitting howl of noise. I walked down to the edge of the lake. The driver slowed on the turn, and the lad on the surfboard leaned out against the pull. He made it. The waves stirred by the boat came charging in towards the shore of the lake at my feet. The waves were still slapping when I turned back to the house. I heard a bell chiming from the front door. I crossed to it and opened it. Eileen Wade was standing there. She said, "I'm sorry, I forgot my key." She came in and I shut the door. "Is anything wrong?" "Well, there's a little drinking being done. He's asleep on the couch in his study." "He called you?" "He asked me to lunch." "Oh," she sat down. "I forgot it was Thursday. How stupid." "Candy got the lunch before he left. I guess I'll blow now." She smiled. "Won't you have some tea?" "All right." I didn't know why I said that. I didn't want any tea. "I'll just look in and see if Roger's all right." I watched her cross to the study door and open it. She stood there a moment and closed the door and came back. "He's still asleep." I watched her go up the stairs and into her room. I crossed to the study with the idea of removing the bottle of hooch. There was an acrid smell in the air, and there was too heavy a silence. I knew a dead man lay on that couch. He was on his side. Between his chest and the back of the couch there was a pool of blood, and in that pool lay the Webley hammerless. The side of his face was a smeared mask. I left him like that. There was no doubt he was dead. I looked around for some kind of note. There was nothing but the pile of script on his desk. I hadn't heard the shot, but it must have gone off when I was down by the lake watching the surfboard rider. The final impulse had coincided with the run of the speedboat. I didn't like it, but nobody cared what I liked. The torn pieces of the check were still on the floor, but I left them. The torn strips of that stuff he had written that other night were in the wastebasket. These I did not leave. I stuffed them into my pocket. I went out and shut the door. From the kitchen I heard sounds. I went out there. Eileen gave me an impersonal glance. "How do you like your tea, Mr. Marlowe?" "Just out of the pot as it comes." "I always take cream and sugar. I learned tea drinking in England." "You lived in England?" "I worked there, all through the Blitz. I met a man, but I told you about that." She looked out the window. "It has to be stopped," she said. "Perhaps he'll have to be committed to an institution. Somehow I can't see myself doing that." "He could do it himself," I said. "That is, he could have, up to now." "What do you mean by that?" "I guess it was a wild pitch. Did you hide the gun I told you about? You know, the morning after he made that play upstairs?" "No, I never do anything like that. I don't believe in it." "And you forgot your house keys today?" "I told you I did." "But not the garage key." "I don't need a key for the garage," she said. "It opens by a switch." "I see." "You're making some rather strange remarks," she said with acid in her voice. "I've had some rather strange experiences in this house. Guns going off, drunks lying on the front lawn, lovely women wrapping their arms around me and talking as if they thought I was someone else. It's a pity about that gun, but you don't really love your husband, do you?" Her mouth began to tremble. "Is something wrong in there?" I barely had time to nod before she was running toward the study. She threw open the door and darted in. I followed her into the study. She was kneeling beside the couch with his head pulled against her breast. I went out and found a telephone. I called the sheriff's substation. Then I went out to the kitchen and fed the strips of yellow paper from my pocket down the electric garbage grinder. A deputy was there in about 6 minutes. When I took him into the study, she was still kneeling by the couch. He went over to her. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you shouldn't be touching anything." He reached for the telephone. She scrambled to her feet. "It's my husband. His name is Roger Wade." "I know who he is, ma'am," the deputy said, and dialed. She looked at her blouse. "May I go change?" "Sure." He spoke into the phone and hung up. "You say he's been shot?" "I think this man murdered him," she said, and went quickly out of the room. The deputy looked at me. I better have your name and address. You the one called in? Yeah. I told him my name and address. Just take it easy until Lieutenant Oles gets here. Bernie Oles? Yeah, you know him? Sure, a long time. He's Assistant Chief of Homicide working out of the L.A. Sheriff's Office. Not carrying a gun, are you? Not today. In spots like this, you can't expect the wife to make much sense. We better wait outside. Oles was a tough cop with a grim outlook on life, but a decent guy underneath. He came down the stairs, rubbing the side of his jaw. Men had come and gone. I had just sat in the living room and waited. How's Mrs. Wade? I asked. Too relaxed. She must have grabbed some pills. Demerol. Gunshot suicides always interest me, Oles said. So easy to fake. The wife says you killed him. She says you knew where the gun was. Knew he was getting drunk, knew he had fired off the gun the other night. I searched his desk this afternoon, no gun. I told her where it was and to put it away. You searched the desk? Why? He was getting drunk. I thought it just as well to have the gun somewhere else. You supposed to watch the guy when he's alone? Certainly not. He asked me out to lunch. He was depressed about his writing not going well. He decided to hit the bottle. It's your tough luck you were here, Marlowe. What was the check for, the one he wrote and tore up? His wife came to me and said her husband was off on a toot and would I find him and bring him home. I did. Anything to do with the Lennox case? There isn't any Lennox case. How true. A man came in the front door. There's a Dr. Loring outside, Lieutenant. Says he was called. He's the lady's doctor. Dr. Loring came in with his neat black bag. Upstairs? He asked Oles. Yeah, Oles stood up. What'd you give her that Demerol for, Doc? Dr. Loring frowned. Who says I gave Mrs. Wade Demerol? I do. The bottle's up there with your name on it. She's got a regular drugstore in her bathroom. Demerol is very habit-forming. You just hand them out, huh? You're impertinent, sir. I shall report you. Yeah, do that, Oles said. But first keep the lady clear in her head. I've got questions to ask. Dr. Loring went up the stairs. A man came out of the study and came up to Oles. Lieutenant, the wound is contact, typically suicidal. I don't think there'll be any prints on the gun. It's been bled on too freely. Could it be homicide if the guy was passed out? Oles asked. Of course, but there's no indication of it. I see nothing against suicide so far. If the alcoholic concentration is high enough, I might be inclined to doubt suicide. He went away. Oles yawned. You want to blow? Sure. Stick around where you can be found. You knew where the gun was and had the house to yourself. A perfect setup. Everything but a motive. Okay, Bernie. I'll be home all evening. I drove home and waited for something to happen. It was 9 o'clock when Bernie Oles called up and told me to come in and not stop on the way to pick any flowers. They had candy in a hard chair against the wall of the sheriff's anteroom. He hated me with his eyes as I went by him into a big square room where Captain Hernandez sat behind the desk. All right, Marlowe, he said briskly. Let's have it. Start from the beginning. I gave it to them from the beginning. The truth and nothing but the truth. But not quite all the truth. Nice, Hernandez said at the end, but not quite complete. The night Wade shot off the gun in his bedroom, you went into Mrs. Wade's room and were in there with the door shut. What were you doing in there? She called me in and asked me how he was. How long were you in there? 3 minutes, maybe. I suggest you were in there a couple of hours. You are misinformed, Captain. After you left the room, you went downstairs and spent the rest of the night on the couch. Oles went out and came back with candy. I knew it was coming. Candy told his story in a quiet, savage voice. He had seen Eileen Wade standing in the door of her room taking her clothes off. He had seen me go in her room and stay there a long time, a couple of hours, he thought. When he had finished, he gave me a corrosive look. You're a liar, I said. There isn't any place in the house from where you could see her take her clothes off. Hernandez looked at me. How about the time element? That's his word against mine. I'm talking about what can be proved. Hernandez spat Spanish at Candy. Candy just stared at him. Take him out, Hernandez said. Oles jerked a thumb and Candy went out. I told him if there was an inquest and he told that story on the stand, he'd find himself doing time for perjury. Any questions you want to ask, Oles? Oles shook his head. Hernandez looked at me and said, come back in the morning and sign your statement. We'll have it typed by then. Okay, he said wearily, take off. I went home and went to bed. The inquest was a flop. Eileen Wade was pale and spoke in a low, clear voice. The coroner handled her with velvet gloves. When I got back to the office, the phone was ringing. Old said, I'm coming by your place. I've got things to say. He was in the office in 20 minutes. You liked the suicide verdict, didn't you? What else could it be? Nothing else, I guess. I'm an old cop and I don't like a few things about this Wade death. Such as? I don't like that he left no note. I went through his desk. He wrote letters to himself. He wrote and wrote and wrote, drunk or sober. That guy would have left a 2-page letter if he knocked himself off. The next thing I don't like is he pulled the trigger just when the noise of that speedboat could drown out the shot. What difference would it make to him? More coincidence still that the wife forgot her door keys on the help's day off and had to ring the bell to get into the house. You're forgetting something, Bernie. My car was in the driveway, so she knew I was there before she rang the bell. He grinned. All right, here's the picture. You were down at the lake. Wade was asleep in his study. Suppose she didn't forget her keys. That she goes into the house, looks across and sees you down at the water, looks into the study and sees Wade asleep, knows where the gun is, gets it, waits for the right moment, plugs him, goes back outside, waits for the speedboat to go away, and then rings the doorbell and waits for you to open it. With what motive? Yeah, he said. That knocks it. If she wanted to slough the guy, it was easy. Plenty alimony, nice property settlement. No motive at all. Anyhow, the timing was too neat. She couldn't have done it unless you were in on it. I still don't like it. He held his hand up. I'm not accusing anybody, just speculating. What were you doing with these people anyway? You were pretty helpful and you didn't make a dime. You were pretty helpful to a guy named Lennox, too, and you didn't make a dime. What do you do for eating money, pal? I'm a romantic, Bernie. I hear voices crying in the night, and I go see what's the matter. You got sense, you shut your windows and turn up more sound on the TV set. Bernie walked to the door. You think you're cute, kid, but you're just stupid. I know when a guy is holding out on me. He let the door close and his heels hammered down the corridor. I dialed the number of Mendy Menendez's joint on the Strip. When I finally got him on the line, he said, Hello, cheapie. Been keeping your nose clean? Haven't you heard? I got to be friends with another guy who suicided. Also, the other afternoon I had tea with Harlan Potter. Nice going. All I want is a little information, Mendy. Like about Paul Marston. Never heard of him. You said that too quick. Paul Marston was the name Terry Lennox used in New York before he came here. So? Terry's prints were checked through the FBI files. He never served in the armed forces. Take a kind word and forget the whole thing. Were you ever in England, Mendy? You and Randy Starr and Paul Marston or Terry Lennox? In the British Army, perhaps? Now listen careful, Marlowe. You stir up that Lennox case and you're dead. Terry was a pal and I got feelings. I'll go along with you just this far. It was a British commando outfit, okay? It happened in Norway, November 1942. Thank you, Mendy. And buy yourself a paper, cheapie. Read and remember. Big tough Willie Magoon, beat up in front of his own house. I saw him bounce your boy Chick off the wall in front of Victor's. He hung up. I bought a paper, and it was just as Menendez had said. Big Willie Magoon. Seriously but not critically injured. In our town, the mobs don't kill a cop. A live cop who has been put through the meat grinder is much better advertising. I sat there and brooded about it, and then I dialed the Carn organization and asked for George Peters. I left my name. I went to the main library and found what I wanted in a smallish red-bound book published in England. Then I went home. George Peters called me at 5:40. Listen, I said, I want to become a client of your agency if it doesn't cost too much. Depends on what you want done, old boy. London is full of guys like me. They call them private inquiry agents. Your outfit would have connections. I want some information and I want it quick. Must have it before the end of next week. Spill. I want to know about the war service of Terry Lennox or Paul Marston, whatever name he used. He was in the commandos. I want to know what happened to him. Also, they keep their vital records over there in a place they call Somerset House. I want to know if he figures there in any connection, birth, marriage, anything. I want certified copies of everything. Peters said he would get a night letter off to London at once. Howard Spencer called me the following Friday morning. He was at the Ritz Beverly and suggested I stop over for a drink. I've just talked to Eileen Wade. She has read the script Roger left and she thinks it can be finished off easily. I'll be over in a half an hour, Mr. Spencer. Better make it your room. He had a roomy suite on the west side of the hotel. I take it you have something on your mind, he said. I'll drive you out to Idle Valley. I'd like to see Mrs. Wade, too. He looked uncomfortable. I'm not sure she wants to see you. I know she doesn't. I can get in on your ticket. What good would it do for you to see her, Marlowe? I have something to say to her. I'd like to have somebody along with me as a witness. Witness to what? He snapped. You'll hear it in front of her or you won't hear it at all. Now, just a minute. Is there some mystery about Roger Wade's death? No mystery at all. But the homicide dick who investigated the case is an old friend of mine. He doesn't like a few things. Why did Roger leave no note? Why did Eileen leave him alone the day the help got off? My God, Spencer bleated. Are you telling me the fool cop suspects Eileen? He would if he could think of a motive. And you want to talk to her, he said slowly, in the presence of a witness? That's right. He looked at his watch. I hope to God you're crazy. We looked at each other in silence. When we reached the Wades' place, Spencer got out and marched to the house. The door opened almost at once. Candy was there. Spencer went in and Candy shut the door in my face. I waited and nothing happened. I leaned on the bell. Candy came out snarling. You want a knife in your belly? Candy! It was her voice and it was sharp. I went in. She was standing at the end of one of the Davenports and Spencer was standing beside her. She looked like a million. I didn't realize you were bringing someone with you, she said to Spencer. Marlowe drove me out, Spencer said. He wanted to see you. She smiled at him. You want the script, if I may? It's on the desk in Roger's study. Spencer started across the room. I just sat and waited until her head came around. Well? I see you're wearing that pendant again. It's a British military badge of some sort, isn't it? It's a jeweler's reproduction of one. Spencer came back across the room and sat down and put a thick pile of yellow paper on the cocktail table. Could I look at it a little closer, I asked her. She handed the pendant to me. Why are you so interested? It's the badge of a regiment called the Artists' Rifles. The man who gave it to me was lost soon afterwards, in Norway in the spring of 1940. She smiled. He was in love with me. And you were in love with him? It was a long time ago, she said. I guess you forgot how much you opened up about him, Mrs. Wade. The wild, mysterious love that never comes but once. I'm quoting you. It's darn nice of me to have the same initials. His name was nothing like yours, she said, and he's dead. I held the pendant out to Spencer. This badge didn't even exist until 1947, I said. Therefore, nobody gave it to Mrs. Wade in 1940. Also, no Artists' Rifles were landed in Norway in 1940. There must be some mistake, Spencer said. I gave him a stare. That's one way of putting it. Another way of putting it is I'm a liar, Eileen said. I never knew anyone named Paul Marston. He was never missing in action. I bought this badge myself. Would an explanation like that satisfy you, Mr. Marlowe? The last part would, not the first. You did know Paul Marston, and he was missing in action in Norway. It happened in 1942, and he was in the commandos then. I see no need to be so hostile, Spencer said. Eileen had a rough time in London. Things get confused in one's memory. I took a paper out of my pocket. Sure, I said, like who you got married to. This is a certified copy of a marriage certificate. The date is August 1942. The parties are Paul Marston and Eileen Samsell. Spencer was very quiet. Eileen looked at him. But he was dead, Howard, long before I met Roger. Roger knew all about it. He knew something, I said. The name Paul Marston had a meaning for him. Then why lie about the dates? Spencer asked. Perhaps I was lost in a dream, she said softly. I know I haven't any right to cross-examine you, Eileen, Spencer said slowly. Let's forget it. Marlowe made a big thing out of the badge and the marriage certificate. I guess he had me wondering. Mr. Marlowe, she told him, makes a big thing out of trifles. But when it comes to a really big thing, like saving a man's life, he's out by the lake. And you never saw Paul Marston again, I said. How could I when he was dead? She shuddered suddenly. In October 1942, Hitler issued an order that all commando prisoners were to be turned over to the Gestapo. We all know what that meant. Torture and a nameless death in some Gestapo dungeon. She blazed at me. You're a horrible man. You want to punish me for a trivial lie. Suppose someone you loved had been caught by those people. Is it so strange I tried to build another memory? Spencer spoke to me without looking at me. I take it you've said your piece. I stood up. I guess I was a fool to try to play it this way. I didn't investigate Paul Marston because the Gestapo murdered him, because she got mixed up on her dates, because she married him. When I started investigating him, all I knew was his name. Now, how do you suppose I knew that? Somebody told you, Spencer said curtly. Correct, Mr. Spencer. Somebody who knew him in New York after the war and later saw him out here in Chasins with his wife. Marston is a pretty common name, Spencer said. Yeah. How many Paul Marstons would you say had one side of their faces smashed by a mortar shell? How many Paul Marstons would you say saved the lives of a couple of tough gamblers named Mendy Menendez and Randy Starr? Paul Marston and Terry Lennox were the same man. There is a kind of silence that is almost as loud as a shot. I had it all around me. At last I looked at Eileen. When she spoke, her voice had the emptiness of a mechanical voice on the telephone that tells you the time. I saw him once, Howard. I didn't speak to him, nor he to me. He was terribly changed, but of course I knew him, and of course he knew me. Then he was gone out of the room, and the next day he was gone from her house. It was at the Lorings I saw him and her. Linda Loring told me he just disappeared. Then that woman divorced him. Still later I heard she found him again, and they were married again. Heaven knows why. I suppose it didn't matter to him any more. He knew I was married to Roger. We were lost to each other. Why? Spencer asked. What we had could never be recovered. I used to pretend I would find him again, but as he had been, young and unspoiled. But to find him married to that whore, that was disgusting. I already knew about her and Roger. You ask me why I didn't leave Roger and go back to Paul. After he had been in her arms and Roger in those same willing arms, no thank you. Roger I could forgive. He drank. He was a weak man, but understandable. Paul was either much more or he was nothing. In the end, he was nothing. I wouldn't say he was nothing, I said. Less than nothing, she said with sarcasm. Because he knew what she was, he killed her, then ran away and killed himself. He didn't kill her, I said, and you know it. Roger killed her, and you also know that. Did he tell you? She asked quietly. He gave me a couple of hints. He would have told me in time. It was tearing him to pieces not to. She shook her head. No, Mr. Marlowe. Roger didn't know he had killed her. He had blacked out completely. I don't believe that, Spencer said. I was there. I saw him do it, Eileen said calmly. She's going to tell us about it, I said to Spencer. If I have to tell these things on a witness stand, Howard, she said gravely, your lucrative author is going to look pretty cheap. Sexy, wasn't he? And how that poor fool tried to live up to it. All that woman was to him was a trophy. I spied on them. I saw the whole nasty scene. The time came when he was no longer a satisfactory lover, too drunk. He tried to leave, but she came after him, screaming and stark naked, waving some statuette. She tried to hit him. He was drunk. He tore the statuette out of her hand. You can guess the rest. There must have been a lot of blood, I said. Blood? She laughed bitterly. You should have seen him when he got home. There was blood all over him. I got him into the shower. I got an old suitcase and gathered up all the bloody clothes. I drove to Chatsworth Reservoir, and you can guess what I did with the suitcase full of bloody clothes. Weren't you afraid? Spencer asked. I was sick with fear. If he remembered, he would probably kill me. I said, in that stuff he left in the typewriter, he said a good man had died for him. For no reason, I could see Spencer suddenly got tough. Let me get this straight, Eileen. The police suspect you of killing Roger. All they need is a motive. Looks to me like they might be able to put one together now. She was on her feet. "I think you both better leave my house," she said angrily. "Well, did you or didn't you?" Spencer asked calmly. "Shoot Roger?" Her face was white and tight and angry. "What has got into you, for God's sake?" He wiped his lips. "Eileen, I've stayed in this house 20 times. I've never known the front door to be locked during the daytime. I don't say you shot him, I just asked you." "I shot my own husband?" she asked wonderingly. "Assuming," Spencer said, "that he was your husband. You had another when you married him." "Thank you very much, Howard. Roger's swan song is there in front of you. Take it and go." She turned to walk away. I said, "Mrs. Wade, let's finish the job. That suitcase you threw into the Chatsworth Reservoir, was it heavy?" "Yes, it was very heavy." "How did you get it over the high wire fence around the reservoir?" She made a helpless gesture. "I suppose in emergencies one has an abnormal strength. Somehow I did." "There isn't any fence," I said. "And there was no blood on Roger's clothes. Sylvia Lennox wasn't killed outside the guest house, but inside it on the bed. And there was practically no blood because she was already dead, shot with a gun when the statuette was used to beat her face to a pulp." "I suppose you were there," she said scornfully. Then she went away from us. "What was that about the wire fence?" Spencer asked me. "Just a gag," I said. "I've never been close to the Chatsworth Reservoir." "I see," he said. "But the point is she didn't know either." "Of course not. She killed both of them." I got home late and tired and depressed. I thought of the first time I had seen Eileen Wade, and the second, and the third, and the fourth. She no longer seemed quite real. A murderer is always unreal once you know he is a murderer. It was almost daylight when I finally went to bed. The jangle of the telephone dragged me out of a black well of sleep. "Yeah." "This is Candy, senor. The lady is dead." Dead. What a cold, black, noiseless word it is. "I think the medicine. It's called Demerol. I think 40-50 in the bottle. Empty now." "You call anybody?" "Dr. Loring," Candy said. "He called the cops. I don't show him the letter." "Letter to who?" "Senor Spencer. Give it to the police, Candy. And don't hide anything. Don't tell them any lies." There was a little pause. Then he said, "See," and hung up. It was a couple of hours later that Bernie Olds called me. "Okay, wise guy," he said, "get down here and suffer." It was like the other time. We were in Captain Hernandez's office, and Captain Hernandez was there, and Bernie Olds and a man from the coroner's office, and Dr. Loring, and a deputy named Lawford from the DA's office. Hernandez had some handwritten sheets of notepaper in front of him. "This is informal," Hernandez said. "Dr. Weiss represents the coroner who will decide whether an inquest is necessary. Dr. Weiss?" "I think no inquest," he said. "There's every indication of narcotic poisoning." "Any deduction about the amount taken, Dr. Weiss?" "A fatal dose," he said, and smiled. "According to her confession, she took 2,300 milligrams. It could be an accidental overdose." Hernandez turned to Lawford from the DA's office. "What happens if I give this letter to the press?" "I've read that purported confession," Lawford said, "and I don't believe a word of it. I can't speak for the DA, but my own feeling is your confession would be no grounds to seek an indictment even if the woman had lived. And having already believed one confession, you wouldn't care to believe another that contracted the first one," Hernandez said caustically. "Take it easy. Any law enforcement agency has to consider public relations. If the papers printed that confession, we'd be in trouble." Hernandez said, "Okay, it's your baby. Sign the receipt for me." He shuffled the pink pages together, and Lawford leaned down to sign a form. He put the pages in his pocket and walked out. Dr. Weiss nodded to Olds and Hernandez and went out. Loring stood up to go. "I take it I may inform a certain interested party that there'll be no further investigation of this matter," he said stiffly. "Get lost, Jack," Hernandez said. Dr. Loring almost staggered with shock. Then he made his way out of the room. Then Hernandez looked at me. "This is the end, then?" I asked. "Sure it's the end," Olds said. I was set to pull her in for questioning. Wade didn't shoot himself. The Lennox frail had taken both her men from her. Wade was a blackout drunk. The bastard either thought he had killed Sylvia Lennox or had some reason to know his wife had. None of it explains why she wanted me around. I could think of reasons. You were the loose end. The guy that helped Lennox escape, probably his confidant. What did he tell you? He took the gun that killed her. She could have thought he did it for her. She wanted to milk you. And if she needed a fall guy, you were it. And then you blew the whole thing up in her face with Spencer listening. What are you not convinced about? Hernandez asked. I'm convinced, I said. The case is dead. Also, Ole said, the telephone was working yesterday. Oh, sure, I said. You'd have come running and found a mixed-up story. This morning you have what I suppose is a full confession. You haven't let me read it. If any real work had been done on the Lennox case at the time, somebody would have dug up his war record. Somewhere a connection with the Wades would have turned up. It's possible, Hernandez admitted. But you don't fool around with an open-shut case. You want to read what she wrote in that letter? Okay, read it. I've got to go down the hall. He put a folder on top of the desk. There are 5 photostats in here, Marlowe. Don't let me catch you looking at them. Oles followed him out. When I was alone, I lifted the cover and looked at the photostats. There were 6 of them. I took one and rolled it up and slipped it in my pocket. Then I read the next one in the pile. In about 10 minutes, Hernandez came back. He tallied the photostats and put the file back in his desk. Get the hell out of here. I've got work to do. I got up to go. He said, You carry a gun these days? Part of the time. Big Willie Magoon carried 2. He picked up a rubber band and stretched it between his fingers. See you around. I went out of the door and got out of the building fast. Back in my office, I blew a clear space on my desk and unrolled the photostat. I read it over again. It was reasonable enough to satisfy any open mind. Eileen Wade had killed Terry's wife in a fit of jealous fury, and later she had killed Roger because she was sure he knew. I have 46 Demerol tablets, she wrote. I now intend to take them. I have no regrets, except possibly that I could not have found them together and killed them together. I have no regrets for Paul, whom you have heard called Terry Lennox. He was the empty shell of the man I loved and married. He should have died young in the snow of Norway. Time makes everything mean and shabby and wrinkled. I looked up the number of the journal. I dialed it and asked for Lonnie Morgan. He remembered me. I've got something for you if you want it. Such as? A photostat of a confession to 2 murders. Where'd you get this? The DA's office has the original. They won't release it. I'll call you. I have to check with the brass. We hung up. At 3:30, Lonnie Morgan came to see me. Mr. Sherman, the managing editor, said I could see what you have. It's off the record, unless you agree to my terms. I handed him the photostat. He read the 4 pages rapidly and then again more slowly. Give me the phone. He dialed, waited, and then said, Here it is, Mr. Sherman. He read slowly and distinctly. Then he lowered the phone. He wants to know how you got this. Tell him it's none of his business how. Where is something else. The stamp on the back shows that. Mr. Sherman, it's apparently an official document of the sheriff's office. Also, there's a price. He listened some more and then pushed the phone across the desk. Wants to talk to you. It was a brusque voice. Mr. Marlowe, what are your terms? You print the confession in full in the form of a photographic reproduction, or you don't print it at all. You don't expect to be paid? Not with money. I gave the phone back to Lonnie Morgan. He spoke briefly and hung up. He'll do as you say. Reduced to half size, it'll take about half of page 1A. Mind my saying I think you're a damn fool? Remember that night you drove me home from the city Bastille? You said I had a friend to say goodbye to. If you publish this photostat, that'll be it. Okay, but if this confession is printed, a lot of people will be sore. The DA, the coroner, the sheriff's crowd, a powerful citizen named Potter, and a couple of toughies called Menendez and Starr. You'll probably end up in the hospital or in jail again. He drifted out of the office like something blown by the wind. I picked up a copy of the evening edition of the Journal and read it at home. They had fitted the article into the top half of the page. There was a brusque editorial on another page. There was a half-column by Lonnie Morgan on still another page. Lonnie Morgan's piece was a factual recapitulation of the Lennox case and the suicide of Roger Wade. The editorial asked questions, the kind a newspaper asks of public officials when they are caught with jam on their faces. About 9:30 the telephone rang, and Bernie All said he would stop by on his way home. "Seen the Journal?" he asked coyly and hung up without waiting for an answer. When he got there, he said he would drink a cup of coffee. While I made it, he wandered around the house. "You live pretty lonely for a guy that could get himself disliked," he said. "What's over that hill and back?" "Another street." I carried some coffee into the living room, and he parked himself. "What are you here for, Bernie? You don't like me. No cop likes it when a private citizen does police work behind his back. If you had come clean from the start, Wade might still be alive. What would you like me to say?" "Nothing. It's too late. Right now it might be smart for you to leave town." "I'm not that important, Bernie. Maybe I did some things wrong, but the truth came out. You could have had her yesterday afternoon." "With what?" "Okay, wise guy. She'd have been alive. You wanted her dead, you punk." "I wanted her to take a long look at herself. What she did about it was her business. I wanted to clear an innocent man. I didn't give a good goddamn how I did it, and I don't now. The hard boys will take care of you, Buster." He went across to the door and opened it. "Nice and quiet here," he said. "Just quiet enough." He went down the steps and left. Cops never say goodbye. They're always hoping to see you again in the lineup. About 2 the next afternoon, Linda Loring called me. "I've just flown in from the big lake up north. My almost ex-husband is up there boiling over something that was in the Journal last night. The poor man was weeping when I left." "What do you mean, almost ex?" "Don't be stupid. For once, Father approves. Paris is an excellent place to get a divorce, so I shall soon be leaving to go there. Marlowe, do you know how they shoot tigers? They tie a goat to a stake and then hide out in a blind. It's apt to be rough on the goat. I like you. I'm sure I don't know why, but I do. I hate the idea of your being the goat. You tried so hard to do the right thing, as you saw it." "I'll buy you a drink if you're going to be around long enough. Buy me one in Paris." "Goodbye, Linda. I hope you find what you want." "Goodbye," she said coldly. She hung up. The rest of the day was a blank. I ate dinner and left the Olds at an all-night garage to have the brake linings checked. I took a cab home. The street was as empty as usual. I went up the steps slowly. I unlocked the door and then stopped. I had a feeling the room beyond was not empty. I stepped off the porch and leaned down against the shrubbery. I had a gun, a short-barreled Police .38. I jerked it out. The silence continued. Then a big black Cadillac turned the corner and stopped at the foot of my steps. I waited and listened, crouched against the bush. Then a spotlight clicked on. The big car backed until the spotlight could swing across the front of the car. I went down flat, but the spotlight found me. A siren growled a low pitch for just a second. Then at last the house was full of light, and a man in a white dinner jacket came out to the head of the steps. "Come on in, Cheapy," Menendez said. "You've got company." So I went in. A man was sitting across the room with a gun resting on his thigh. Neither his eyes or the gun moved. I looked at him too long. There was a brief move at my side and a numbing pain in my shoulder. I turned and looked at a big, mean-looking Mexican. This guy was one of the hard boys. The .45 in his hand dropped to his side. Menendez held out his hand. The slugger tossed the gun and Menendez caught it. "Where would you like it, Cheapy?" he asked. There was no answer to a question like that. He slashed me across the face with a gun barrel. "How come you do your own slugging, Mendy? I thought that was coolie labor for the sort of boys that beat up Big Willie Magoon." "It's the personal touch," he said softly. "On account I had personal reasons. The Magoon job was strictly business." "But what have I done to you?" I asked. He hit me again. "You made me look bad." "I've got a hunch there's more to it than that. Lennox was your pal. He got dead, and I had something to do with proving him innocent. So that makes you look bad? He saved your life, and he lost his." He swung his arm back to slug me a third time when I kicked him in the pit of the stomach. He jackknifed, gasping. I put a knee to his face. The man in the chair laughed. That staggered me. "Don't kill him," he said mildly. "We want to use him for live bait." There was movement in the hall, and Oles came through the door. He looked down at Menendez. Oles looked at me. "That was a plant, kiddo," he said cheerfully. "You hurt bad? Well, for my money, you had it coming." He jerked Menendez to his feet. "You got crossed up, sweetheart," Oles told him. "I ain't grieving over Magoon. He had it coming. But he was a cop. And punks like you lay off cops, always and forever." "You ordered 3 muscles," Oles said. "What you got was 3 deputies from Nevada. Somebody in Vegas don't like the way you forgot to clear with them. If somebody wants to talk to you, you can go along with these deputies." Mendy crossed himself quickly and walked out the front door. The tough Mex followed him, then the other one. There was a sound of doors banging, then a car went off into the night. "Nice work, Bernie. Think he'll get to Vegas alive, you cold-hearted son of a bitch?" "Next time, don't try to outguess the cops," he said. "You think we let you steal that photostat for laughs? We had a hunch Mendy would come gunning for you. We put it up to Starr cold. No mobster beats up even a bad cop and gets away with it. Starr convinced us he had nothing to do with it, so when Mendy called for a squad to come and give you the treatment, Starr sent him 3 guys he knew at his own expense. Starr is a police commissioner in Vegas. The coyotes out in the desert will get fed tonight. Cop business is wonderful, uplifting work, Bernie." "You looked pretty good walking in that door," Oles said. We had a drink, and he left by the back door, which he had jimmied to get in, having dropped by the night before for scouting purposes. I looked at my watch. It was still early. It only seemed like a long time since I had come home. I went to the phone and dialed the Lorings. She was in. "I was the goat, all right," I said, "but they caught the tiger alive. I could tell you about it over a drink." "Tonight? I'm packing to move out. I'm afraid that would be impossible." "It was kind of you to warn me. It had nothing to do with your old man." "Are you sure?" She sounded warmer. "Perhaps I could fit a drink in. Where?" "Anywhere you say." "I'll pick you up. What's the address there?" I told her, and she hung up. Then I put in a call to Randy Starr in Las Vegas. "Nice to hear from you, Marlowe. What can I do for you?" "Mendy is on his way to Vegas with the 3 goons you sent after him in a big black caddy." "I don't own any hard boys in Cadillacs, Mr. Marlowe." "They were deputies, maybe. He pistol-whipped me. All the same, I hope he gets to Vegas alive." "I'm sure he will." "Starr, were you in on that caper at Otataclan, or did Mendy work it alone?" "Come again?" "Mendy warned me not to dig into the Lennox case." "I see. You think there was something not quite kosher about how Terry got dead?" "I think details would help. He wrote a confession which was false. He wrote a letter to me which got mailed. The letter was finished just as a knock came at his door. I'd like to know who came into the room." "No idea, Marlowe. I'll ask Mendy if he has any ideas." "Yeah, find out. Or somebody else will." "You?" His voice hardened. "No, Mr. Starr. Somebody that could blow you out of Vegas without taking a long breath." "I'll see Mendy alive. Don't worry. I figured you knew all about that. Good night, Mr. Starr." When the car stopped out front and the door opened, I went out to call down the steps, but the driver was holding the door for her to get out. He followed her up the steps with a small overnight case, so I just waited. Linda Loring stood in my living room. "Your poor face, it's all cut." "What would you like to drink?" I thought of champagne. I've been saving it for years. 2 bottles. "I suppose, without preamble, after we have champagne, you plan to grab me and throw me on the bed. Is that it?" "Frankly," I said, "some such idea did stir." She got up and came over close to me. "I'm a tired and disappointed woman. Please be kind to me. I'm no bargain to anyone. You're not tired, and you're no more disappointed than most people are. By all the rules, you ought to be the same sort of spoiled brat your sister was. By some miracle, you're not." I walked to the kitchen and got one of the bottles of champagne and 2 goblets and carted it all to the living room. She had loosed her hair, and she had tufted slippers on her feet, and a silk robe the color of a sunset. Very quietly, she came into my arms. An hour later, she stretched out a bare arm and said, "Would you consider marrying me?" "It wouldn't last 6 months." "Do you have something against marriage?" "For 2 people in 100, it's wonderful. The rest just work at it. Besides, it would just be an incident to you. The first divorce is the only tough one. In 6 months, she said, I won't remember your name. I'll introduce myself, I said. We'll have a drink together. Like tonight? It won't ever be like tonight again, I said. After a while, she went to sleep. In the morning, we had breakfast together. I called a cab and carried her case down the steps. We said goodbye. I went back up and remade the bed. There was a long, dark hair on one of the pillows. There was a lump of lead at the pit of my stomach. The French have a phrase for it. To say goodbye is to die a little. Sewell Endicott said I could drop around about 7:30. He stared at me silently after I sat down. Then he said, Don't tell me you're still digging into that mess. Something worries me. You saw Terry Lennox's body in Otataclan, didn't you? I did indeed. There's no question of identity. Face and hands were darkened, hair dyed black, but the scars were still obvious, and the fingerprints, of course, were checked. It was quite hot. They had to get ice from the hotel. No embalming there. I had a letter from Terry, Mr. Endicott, if you care to read it. I gave it to him, and he read it carefully. The mailbox bothers me, I said, where he says there was a mailbox on the street under his window, and the waiter was going to hold up his letter so Terry could see it was mailed. Something in Endicott's eyes went to sleep. They wouldn't have one in a place like Otataclan, I said. It's a mere village. Another small point I have already raised with Randy Starr. How come the letter got mailed at all? What's your conclusion? And why bring Starr in on it? Starr and a heel named Menendez were pals of Terry's in the British Army. They're wrong G's, but they still have room for personal pride. There was a cover-up here engineered for obvious reasons. There was another sort of cover-up in Otataclan for entirely different reasons. What's your conclusion? He asked me again. What's yours? He didn't answer me, so I thanked him for his time and left. It was another wheel to start turning. It turned for a month before anything came up. Then on a certain Friday morning, I found a stranger waiting in my office. He was a well-dressed Mexican. He handed me a folded paper. It read, This introduces Cisco Marianos. I think he can fix you up. S. He smelled of perfume. His eyebrows were dainty, too, but he probably wasn't as dainty as he looked because there were knife scars on both sides of his face. He sat down. You wish information about Senor Lennox? Only the last scene. I was the day clerk in the hotel. I myself took the letter to the Carrero after the shooting. You ought to have looked inside. It had a large piece of money in it. The letter was sealed, he said coldly. Senor Lennox had a 100-peso note in his left hand when I went into the room and shut the door in the face of the guard. In his right hand was a pistol. On the table was the letter. I took the letter out onto the napkin on the tray from the previous service of coffee. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard the shot. I hid the letter and ran back upstairs. Senor Lennox was dead. The rest, you no doubt know. Were there any other Americans at the hotel? 2 Americanos del Norte, hunters. Well, it was damn nice of you to come and tell me about it, Senor Marianos. Tell Randy I'm ever so grateful. And later on he could send me somebody who knows what he's talking about. You doubt my word? Sit quiet and let me tell it another way. Those 2 Americans were there for a purpose. One of them was named Menendez. Lennox knew they were there. He wrote me that letter because he had a guilty conscience. He had played me for a sucker. He put the $5,000 in because he had a lot of money and he knew I hadn't. He also put in a little offbeat hint. You say you took the letter to the Correo? Why didn't you mail it in the box in front of the hotel? He smiled. Otataclan is not Mexico City, senor. There is no street mailbox in Otataclan. I said, you did not take any trade to Senor Lennox's room, Senor Marianos, but the 2 Americans did go in. The dick was fixed, of course. One of the Americanos slugged Lennox from behind. Then he took the Mauser pistol and took out the bullet and put the cartridge back in the breech. Then he put this gun to Lennox's temple and pulled the trigger. It made a nasty-looking wound, but it didn't kill him. When the American lawyer saw Lennox, he was ice-cold in a deep stupor, and there was a blackened wound in his temple. He looked dead. The next day the coffin was buried with stones in it. The American lawyer went home with the fingerprints. How do you like that, Senor Marianos? Then Senor Lennox may still be alive? Sure. The suicide had to back up the confession. It had to be good enough to fool the lawyer. This Menendez was tough enough to pistol whip me for not keeping my nose clean, so he had to have reasons. All that is possible, senor. But you accused me of lying. You said I did not go into the room where Senor Lennox was and get his letter. You were already in there, chum, writing the letter. He took the dark glasses off. Nobody can change the color of a man's eyes. I suppose it's too early for a gimlet, he said. They had done a wonderful job on him in Mexico City. They couldn't make Terry's face perfect, but they had done plenty. How close did I come? Close enough. Mendy didn't like my writing you, but I held out for that. He never noticed the bit about the mailbox. You know who killed Sylvia? He didn't answer directly. It's pretty tough to turn a woman in for murder, even if she never meant much to you. Was Harlan Potter in on all this? My guess is not. My guess is he thinks I'm dead. How's Mendy? He's doing all right. In Acapulco. He slipped by because of Randy. Well, how about that gimlet? I got up and went to the safe. I spun the knob and got out the envelope with the portrait of Madison on it and the 5 C-notes. I dumped the lot on the desk and picked up the 5 C-notes. These I keep. The portrait of Madison is all yours. It's yours to keep, he said. You could have let things lie. I know. After she killed her husband, she might have gone on to better things. He was of no real importance, just a human being with a brain and emotions. Look, I didn't want anyone to get hurt, he said. I wouldn't have had a dog's chance up here. I was scared and I ran. What should I have done? Let's go have a drink somewhere where it's cool and quiet. No time right now, Senor Marianos. We were pretty good friends once, he said, unhappily. Were we? That was 2 other fellows, seems to me. You permanently in Mexico? Oh, yes, I've always liked Mexico. It wouldn't be too much risk going to Victor's for that gimlet. Pick up your money, Senor Marianos. That has too much blood on it. I gave you a chance to turn me in. I'm not sore at you. You're just that kind of guy. You were just as happy with hoodlums as with honest men. I got in a bad jam. I happen to know the sort of people who know how to deal with bad jams. They delivered, and for free. You're not the only guy in the world that has no price tag, Marlowe. I got a whiff of perfume from him. He bought a lot of me, Terry, for a smile and a few quiet drinks. It was nice while it lasted. So long, amigo. I won't say goodbye. I said it when it meant something. I'm not judging you. It's just that you're not here anymore. You've got nice clothes and perfume, and you're as elegant as a $50 whore. That's just an act, he said almost desperately. You get a kick out of it. He shrugged. Of course. An act is all there is. And here, he tapped his chest with a lighter, there isn't anything. I've had it, Marlowe. He stood up. I stood up. I shook his hand. So long, Senor Marianos. Nice to have known you. Goodbye. He turned and walked across the floor and out. I listened to his steps going down the corridor. After a while, they got faint and they got silent. I kept on listening. Did I want him to stop suddenly and turn and come back and talk me out of the way I felt? Well, he didn't. That was the last I saw of him. I never saw any of them again, except the cops. No way has yet been invented to say goodbye to them.